I cannot believe you chose this moment to eat a Cliff Bar. We've been trying to get this going for 40 minutes.
No,
and you eat a Cliff Bar now. Now's when you eat a Cliff Bar, Griffin. Now.
He should eat. It is a wise decision.
No, a wise decision would have been to eat in the last 40 minutes when we've been trying to get this going.
He's gonna need so much energy, though. He's going to war right now.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Smoking.
No, he's up. He's up. All that energy is fusing into him.
He's also put on the mask.
I ate the Cliff Bar. It gave me joke energy. Let's do a podcast. Smoking. Justin made me watch the Jim Carrey documentary. It ruined my fucking life.
Welcome to the Besties, where we talk about the latest and greatest in sports, pop culture, news, trivia, HQ, QH, masks, some spooky new ones on the market this year. We're going to talk about all of the new masks on the market, and we talk about dating advice and stuff, then video games.
Don't do it. Save your heart for marriage.
Save your heart for marriage.
Wait. Are you saying never be abstinent from dates?
Yes. So
Yes.
Russ just said best game of the week, and I know that's like his fun catchphrase, but it did make me think about a time where we did this podcast on a weekly basis, and it sent a literal ghostly shiver up my spine.
Haunting. This year we're talking about mainly focus on video games. You know, they've come in 2017.
This
what
was
I
the
can
year.
say is this year they have come into their own. They're not art, obviously. They're just
No.
toys for
That's
children.
paintings and stuff, but yeah.
But they have come a long way since Pac-Man. And I want to talk about the greatest games of 2017. That's where we're here to settle. I'd love to tell you we had a system. We basically randomly assembled a bracket. Nigh randomly. I'll be fair. Nigh randomly. And before we get into those,
That's going to become immediately apparent once we reach what I'm going to call the diarrhea round that we have in here. You are going to know this was not scientific in any way.
I basically had a bunch of ping pong balls and a washing machine, and I just threw them in there, and I forgot to number them. So as I was pulling them out, I was numbering them then.
Yeah, and of course all the ping pong balls melted. And so what we are handing you is our plastic mistake.
So let's get this plastic mistake started. First, I want to talk about a couple things that we did not talk about previously, which we were supposed to do last year, but a couple things were like late additions.
Yes.
The first one I wanted to mention was Gorgoa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's kind of intentionally challenging, I think. But Gorgoa is a puzzle game that came out in sort of the middle of December. And gosh, it is hard to explain. It's sort of a one-man show made by Jason Roberts. He's been making it for, I think, over 7 years. And it came out on iOS and Switch and Windows. It is a sort of a storybook puzzle game where the story and the game itself is presented to you in 4 panels in sort of a square orientation. And you have the ability to zoom in on the panels, zoom out, and also sort of shift them to different places. So, for instance, if you see a window in one of the frames you're looking at, you might be able to tap that window to sort of zoom in and change your perspective. And that could go several layers deep. You know, maybe you see something out the window and then you could zoom in on that thing. And then by sort of adjusting the scale like that and also the positioning, you sort of create tableaus that allow the 2 scenes to interact with each other.
Yeah. So as an example, like you may be looking at a boy sitting at a dark desk trying to read something, but you can zoom in on a darkened lantern. And when your perspective switches to that, there's actually a hole in that frame of the picture where the lantern is, and then you drag and drop it over another picture that has like a bunch of stars, and one of the stars is very bright. And where the hole is in that one picture, you drop over that star, and suddenly the light from the star is the light inside the lantern. and then you zoom back out and the boy can see and the painting has changed, and it's very
Is the boy confused at all that a star is now in his bedroom?
He's instantly immolated because the star is billions of degrees. But it's what is so cool about it. That's just like one example of like what this game does. And there's I played it for about a half hour and there were dozens of these cool little interactions. It's so fluid though. There's no like, it's not like, oh, you beat the level. It's just like, okay, the picture has changed and now there's a new picture, and it tells this very like straightforward, like fluid journey that this one boy goes on, but it doesn't it's not broken up in any conceivable way. It's just constantly evolving.
The interesting thing I think about Gorgoa is that it does not necessarily test your puzzle solving skills as much as it tests your ability to sort of expand your perception and think abstractly, trying things that you don't necessarily think make much sense, and then seeing how those two things interact and overlap. And so it's obviously also like very beautiful to look at.
Yeah. I just want to like dig into that a little bit more, because I don't enjoy most adventure games, especially classic adventure games where you're spamming clicking around the room. And it's like, oh, well, of course a paperclip when combined with a hot dog is actually the key to the next place. Where this, it feels like, one, there's not that much space to spam if you play it on your phone. Or on
it does
Switch.
a really nice thing where it illuminates the things that can be interacted with, and you can turn that feature off if you want to be like fully immersed. But there's only ever like a couple of things that you can interact with. It's not like you have this huge catalog of options available to you. It's just trying to figure out how your limited options interact with each other.
Yeah, but then it there is pleasure in that discovery. The paperclip hot dog thing. It's not like, oh, well, that was a weird goof that the designer came up with, and now I feel dumb for not putting it together. The game recognizes that you might not notice what the connection is that it's trying to make. The reward or the pleasure is like what comes after it.
Right.
Which is like, I don't know, it's kind of like an inversion of how I feel my relationship is with most adventure games.
It's a fascinating game. We do need to move on, but totally check it out.
On that same vein, just sort of cerebral, quiet, artistic, smart people stuff. Is a game that Santa Claus came down chimney and brought to me for the Christmas day of the Christ's birth. And that is Drop Mix, the harmonics rhythm card game, which I don't know. I had read some like not great stuff about, and I don't know who would not enjoy this game because it's fucking incredible. Basically, you have this deck, this board with 5 slots in it, and each one is sort of matched to different instrument categories, kind of like Amplitude. So there's like a guitar slot and a drum slot and like a vocal slot, and then there's 2 hybrid slots where you could put an instrument or a drum or whatever. And you have these cards. And then you connect the whole board via Bluetooth to your phone, and then your phone is like the screen and the speaker for everything. And then as you play cards in those slots, it adds components to songs.
The cards have song fragments on them.
Right. So Call Me Maybe's vocals and maybe... God, I'm blanking on everything that is in the game.
The Weeknd.
Yeah, I Can't Feel My Face's drums and... The Mother We Share by Church's guitar, and you blend all these together, and there's like a freestyle mode where you can just drop all these. There are other game modes too that have more like rules and scoring and stuff like that. But then there are what are called wildcards, and wildcards are basically all components of a song. So Super Freak by Rick James, or Down with the Sickness, and you play those, and it changes the sort of parameters of every other card that's on the board, and it does that by usually playing a drop from whatever song that you've just played the wild card for, but it also changes the key signature and tempo of all of the cards, and it shows you all of these. And in freestyle mode, you can switch between those as well. And I got kind of more into like music composition and stuff this year, and it sort of gave me a basic understanding of like how this works with loops and things like that. And this is really fucking sophisticated technology, because like all of it works. All of it works so well. Like all of it sounds so great together.
It always works. It's sometimes you make a song where you're like, I am not enjoying this very much. But a
then
lot
you
of times
play,
it's just
But then you play the OP God card of Skrillex's Bangarang, and it like you were just listening to, you know, a mix of Short Skirt Long Jacket and I Will Survive, and then you drop this Bangarang on there, and then this song picks up and slowly speeds up, and you hear Bangarang bass, and suddenly the song is now Bangarang. It is fucking excellent. We played it Christmas night for like a few hours with Justin's in-laws, like their whole family, and they're not like elite gamers like we are, but like,
and not even really music people. Like you don't need that understanding to.
I think there was some trepidation, like, oh, I'm going to be bad at this. You can't be bad at this. The game is going to figure it out for you.
It even shifts things. Griffin pointed this out. It's really fascinating. It can shift like major key songs into minor keys, and that's like wild. Like it changes the entire vibe of the thing.
Hearing the vocals to Call Me Maybe in a minor key signature is like, whoa, all right. It's fucking excellent. The day after Christmas, I went online and bought like $100 worth of more cards to it, because it's like all I want to do is play Drop Mix with my buds, which hopefully we'll be able to do real soon.
Yeah.
Drop Mix is great. It's also going to be one of those things like DJ Hero, where like next year you're going to be able to get it for a song, and I cannot recommend that you do that strongly enough.
Don't wait for that. No, do it now.
I mean, do it now. Support them, because it's such a cool, weird idea. Like all the things that Harmonix makes.
It's also on sale on Amazon right now for $70 for like a bunch of cards and the board.
Yeah, you get the deck and 70 or so cards. It's really
also
fun.
Let's all go buy DJ Hero.
Dude, I already own DJ Hero. I picked that up at like Target for $15, and that game owns bones. All right, let's do this damn thing.
Okay.
Can we say something nice about each other before we get into it? Because I'm worried it's gonna get nasty.
You think so?
I don't know.
Let me preface this by saying I don't give a fuck who wins. I honestly don't. Every single year, I don't care. If you're a human being who cares what the game of the year was decided by a bunch of people you don't personally know, it shouldn't bug you that much if it doesn't end up being the game you super duper love.
This is for the journey, not the destination.
So that's exactly right. Is our number one game of the year. Again, I mean, nobody's made a better game than it. I love those little Jawas running around and doing
they got
their
that
stuff.
cape.
They singing their beautiful songs.
I don't care. I do. This is gonna apply to everyone. I love spending time with you guys and talking about the games that we love. So that's
also,
what
this
I get
isn't
out of
Polygon's game of the year. Polygon already put up their game of the year list, and they more or less got it right. We more or less got it right. So. Some weird choices though. Chris, okay, let's get into this. Chris, Dirt 2 made it really high up on the list this year. What happened
Chris,
there, bud?
how did that happen, bud?
How much time did both of you spend playing Dirt 2?
None. I'm a sane human
that's
being.
interesting. That's really interesting. I'm really excited to hear more of your opinions on it.
Oh shit, he got us in a trap, Justin.
My God.
How are the puddle effects in Dirt 2? Because I feel like that really stood out.
Don't matter. It's that feel of being on that bumpy, dirty road.
Being on a dirty car. All right, let's do it. Round one. Let's do it. We have eight rounds, including one diarrhea round, and then we're gonna get down to the next sort of cycle or whatever. So,
oh my God.
I think let's just do it. Round one. Gravity Rush 2 versus Horizon Zero Dawn.
Okay. Do we want to talk about why we paired these two?
Yeah, I think in each round it would be good for us to like talk about why we paired these two.
They're open world games.
Okay, end of it. And then
and they both star a lady. They both feature a lady.
Yeah. Oh well, sure. Also, two big budget open world games were exclusive to one console.
Yeah, sure.
And they also both came out before March.
Yeah, this was a really. Maybe between like the big rounds, we should talk about the year in general, because what a buck wild first quarter.
I want to talk a little bit about Rush, Gravity Rush 2.
Somebody. I think it's best if one person talks about one game and one person talks.
I'm going to talk about Gravity Rush 2. Gravity Rush 2 is charmingly like artistic and beautiful and very cheery by and large, even though there's large chunks that seem like they'd be depressing. The lead character of that game is like very up and happy and eager to help people. The game, it's like the overall campaign of it, I found pretty tedious and not super cool. But I thought that the side stuff they introduced, specifically the stuff they added with like like scavenger hunt-y stuff where you like are shown a photo and then you have to like find where that photo was taken is like really, really cool. I thought they did a really neat job with like the photo sharing stuff. So I think tonally I really loved it. The side stuff I really dug. The rest of the game was like, eh.
Plan, I know this is kind of your baby. Why did you? Why did you? Because you fought pretty intensely to make sure this made the top 16.
Yeah, I love both these games. I think both these games are great. I think really quick, Horizon is like, it feels like a pinnacle of a type of game design that maybe we are hitting the end of. The like Assassin's Creed open world, very meticulously designed game.
I'm curious to hear why you think we're hitting the. I agree with you because my patience for the most part for like open world character action games has kind of reached its limit.
Let's see what wins the game of the year this year.
Well, no, that's different.
Well, no, I don't think. I think that's exactly what I mean when I say we're hitting the end of it. I am not saying open world games are done. I'm saying this. Hey, collectathon, there are 1,000 markers on the planet. Here's a story that like the Horizon story is good, but it is a good version of a kind of like, I don't know, weak construction that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're at the end of it because even these games are like pushing against it. Horizon's combat obviously is a huge shift for this type of series.
Yeah.
They're getting away from like the cars and the parkour of GTA and Assassin's Creed that I think kind of dominated the formula. I think Assassin's Creed changing its combat shows a pretty substantial shift for a series that has refused to do that for years. And then I think Zelda, which we'll get to in a second, is essentially what happens when you break all this open. And I think Gravity Rush is too. Gravity Rush is not a flawless game. It is not as polished as Horizon by any stretch of the imagination. It has, without question, my least favorite first hour of the game this year.
Yeah, it's terrible first hour.
Horrible. It is first person, and you can't fly, so it's everything that the game is not.
And very dark and sad.
But it is just, the open world is incredible. It's kind of riffing on Cuba in the 1950s, 60s. The story goes like much deeper than I thought it would on the issues of income inequality and like basically like it does a lot of interesting things with wealth and what it means to be a Robin Hood character and how that is good and bad. But the thing that I loved the most was, and this is like, we're going to get into obviously some spoilers. These games have been out for a while. But you start in an open world, and then you get a mission about, 7 hours in that is hundreds of meters below you. And you jump off the edge, and it turns out at any point you could have just jumped off the edge of the game, and rather than died, you would have fallen for a long time to another open world. And then later, it turns out there's another open world above everything. And that is such a playful and inventive way of exploring space. And it solves a thing that I always hate about open world games, which is, well, everything's on the same plane. So to get anywhere can take forever. If like you're at the far north end of a map and you want to get to the south, but you also want to not use fast travel, it's a slog. But being able to control gravity and just essentially turn it, like the universe itself into an elevator, is just so, really cool. So fun.
It also got rid of the like stupid, like, oh, you can't go here because rockets are going to blow you up for no reason. Like, it's more, well, it never even occurred to you
that you could go
there. Yeah. Right. And I also think, just to wrap up my feelings on it, there are a handful of like icky, like there's you're essentially taking photos of women around the world for a creepy man.
Cool, great.
It does a few icky missions, but largely, I think the story's so warm and compassionate. And I played, there are a lot of great games this year, but I didn't play a lot of games that gave me that kind of warm, ooey gooey feeling.
Yeah, now that I think about it, like that's my jam. Like my games of the year for the past couple of years were like Undertale and Stardew Valley, which were very much like almost like loving games, right? Like they were very compassionate and nice. And I mean, we definitely got that in the form of like, you could argue that like Mario, for instance, gave that to you. But like,
listen,
Yeah, also-
I love you guys so much. We cannot spend this long on each
Sure.
individual game.
I think,
Sure.
right.
Gravity
I
Rush 2
think
is good.
Plant is eulogizing Gravity Rush 2, I feel like, because
Well, I mean, I would put it through, but I don't think it's going to get through. Also, you can wear a Nier costume, so it's my Gotti.
Horizon Zero Dawn is, I think the most impressive thing about Horizon Zero Dawn is not just the polish of the fact that it is an open world game that seems to have like really considered a lot of the areas that you find yourself in. I think the interesting thing about Horizon Zero Dawn is that it actually has, which so many open world games lack, the structure to support that open world. And by that, I mean, you have an amount of flexibility with your tool set. This is just for starters. You have an amount of flexibility with your tool set that makes you want to try different things in an open world. It doesn't force you to boil every encounter in this open world down to a sort of like regimented thing that you rely on. You of course are welcome to do that, and there were certain periods I had where I would lean on one tactic over another. But the variety in the animals you encounter and the variety in the world makes it so that like the open world really does demand you use different tools and like sort of experiment with different things, which I think is something that a lot of open world games lack. It forces you to use a huge tool set. It also has, and I think, a story that is good enough to support the it lifts up the exploration rather than feeling like tacked on to this open world. The story is engaging enough that you like actually want to keep moving through the world to find the next chunk of it. The backstory informs that world rather than just being grafted onto it, which I think is a really huge accomplishment, especially from the maker of popular bad game franchise Killzone.
yeah.
Okay, there are good missions in some Killzone games, but I just remember the thing that we've done in previous years, which is largely talk about the game that we're going to kill, because the game that is going to survive will go to another round. So what I'm saying is I recognize that Gravity Rush is probably not going to survive, so we should probably save Horizon for another thing. But I want you to continue that thought when we inevitably get back to it, Justin, because I think, especially the stuff about the story, what it does with story, I agree. I think is really interesting.
We'll talk. Let's talk more about it here in a second. Is everybody okay with cutting Gravity Rush 2?
Yes.
All right.
Go for it.
Round 2. Introduce it, Justin.
Can I throw something out there?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it won't expand the length of this podcast by 1 second.
No. It's in the spirit of shortening things. So maybe for each round, we assign 2 people, and each person gets like a sentence to essentially say why this game should be their pick.
Well, Juice and I'll tackle this one since you all tackled that one for the most part.
Okay.
Destiny 2 and PUBG. Which one you want, Juice? I'm good either way.
I will take Destiny 2. And this is my pitch for it beating PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
No, it's just describing why you liked it, because I think we're all going to land on the same page here.
Destiny 2 is Destiny 2 is the
second Destiny game. You got this.
Destiny 2 is the pinnacle of Destiny's strength over the years since the first one was released. By that I mean Destiny 2 is the best example yet of Bungie's willingness to look at what works and what doesn't work about their game and have practically no religion about keeping things that are not working. And I think Destiny 2 shows a really remarkable ability to jettison things that don't make it more fun and more pleasurable to play and really streamline it into the experience that people who stayed with Destiny even when they shouldn't have, the experience that they were trying to sell non-believers on, I think is really like present from the day one in Destiny 2. I've spent maybe 100 hours with it, I think, this year, and I was never grinding, which I think is like fascinating to me. Like I never felt like I was doing a grind, and in Destiny 1, I felt like I was doing a grind a lot. And I think Destiny 2, you can make whatever arguments you want about its lack of compelling things to do in perpetuity. I don't.
And
think
I
that's the
will
kind of
make
game,
that argument.
I don't think it's the kind of game that. See, that's bogus though. Like
It is.
It from the jump, they have never proclaimed Destiny 2 to be a game you can play endlessly, and I think that's what's so fascinating about it is that you play it for. There's no other game like this for me.
Yes,
where I play it for a while and then think, you know what, I'm going to check back in on Destiny 2 now that, and like people move in waves back into it, which I think is fascinating. I do think that they have sort of, I think they're sort of fucked up by bifurcating the market. With the PC version, I think that I've seen much less engagement with the PS4 version. And that's not saying like there shouldn't be a PC version. Maybe they should just only be a PC version. I don't know. But that has certainly like robbed it of some of that power. But I still think it's a really, really, really smart, maybe even too smart in some cases, wearing away some of the mystery and magic that came with a game that was like kind of broken in the first Destiny. But I think
there was something charming
really
about like, oh no, you have to go to the moon and run around for 4 hours to get this gun to be good.
Destiny 1 was sort of like Dark Souls or Demon Souls, and Destiny 2 is like Dark Souls 3, but you're playing it with like a Prima guide. Like, you know every secret because it's all presented
more
like
or less,
very clearly. This is what you get for doing this thing.
I do want to say I agree with what you're saying, Justin, and I think a lot about this. The fact that Destiny occupies this sort of same space that, like, I think Diablo is probably the closest thing to it, right? Because it's not like an MMORPG, although people do definitely play it like that and expect that level of retention. But it's more in the vein of like a Diablo, where I think that people do want to play it infinitely. And I think that speaks to how fucking fun the game is to play. It's a really, really fun game to play, and it feels good to invest all of your time into your characters and stuff. I spent about 200 hours playing it this year, like maxed out everything, got all the exotic weapons, played it a ton. And I would be lying if I said like I wasn't disappointed that I don't feel this pull to play more of it, because when I compare it to Destiny 1, like Destiny 1 I kept coming back to, although again there was like a 9-month break there where I didn't play it because it was shitty until they started to make some substantial changes to it. But yeah, I it's weird because the conversation about Destiny 2 is so bad right now. Like, people who are the biggest fans of it are really down on it. There's this perception that the things that they add to the game are really just ways of trying to funnel people into the paid marketplace, the Eververse economy. And I think that they have definitely made some mistakes there. I definitely don't think the first DLC for the game is very good. Like, it needs like, I like Bungie a lot as a developer, and I think they do great work, and I think that they do know how to like save a game, right? They did it with Destiny 1. But I feel like they have a long sort of arduous road ahead of them, because they got to change some stuff. They got to add some stuff, I feel like, in a pretty major way, because like you said that about dipping back in, right, Juice? But like, you and I both got the DLC and played it. Have you been playing it a whole lot since the DLC?
No, I finished. I just think it's not very good.
It's not very good
content, and yeah, I still have not seen the new raid stuff. I maybe I should dig back in on that. I love again. I have a deep and abiding love for everyone on this call. We have made it through 4 of 16 games.
Yeah, I think
the wild card.
Justin, I literally asked you to do one sentence
so completely in your task of talking
one sentence. Justin, is what I asked you for, and you went on for 3 hours.
All right,
so
Player
just saying.
Player Battlegrounds is fucking incredible. It's a genius game where every sort of mechanic in it, every part of its design is built around creating like really remarkable, memorable, incredible moments that are my favorite time I've ever had playing a shooter. Yeah, here we go.
PUBG is great.
We will talk more about PUBG in the next round, because it's an important
Prey
game.
versus Lone Echo.
Lonely space games.
I can do either of them.
I can do Lone Echo. I finished it. I feel like I'm Lone Echo's like biggest.
Griffin, you talked a lot about Lone Echo when we did the regular show. Why don't you let Russ talk about Lone Echo? Because I'd like to hear it from another perspective.
Okay, so Lone Echo, I did not play to the end. Fair warning. I also get very motion sick. I vaguely remember talking
he's
about.
got a very easily upset tummy, as long as we're listing other things about Russ.
Yes, all accurate about my tummy. Lone Echo.
He doesn't say Mario, right?
Unquestionably is it's the most incredible VR experience I've ever had in my life. No question about it. Before that, it was Super Hot VR. Lone Echo has taken it over for Super Hot VR. It is so convincing, a facsimile of like you being a robot person in space, that after I took the helmet off, I was having legit like cyber mind hacking like freakouts at my desk looking at my computer, because it's such a convincing, thorough representation of what it would be like to be a robot in space. I don't really know how else to sell it beyond that. It's an amazing
it accomplishes
achievement.
that because of not it accomplishes that by, again, it's just like so smart in how it solves all of these like VR problems, especially traversal, and that you just move by grabbing onto the environment, pushing yourself off, and then using your weak thrusters to like change your trajectory.
Yeah, you're really moving quite slowly for the most part, and that does. Like I was able to play it for an hour without getting sick, which is really an accomplishment.
And all the UI is tangible. There's not like a menu button that you press, and it like
it's all
drops
in
you
the
out.
world. You're always looking at your hands, your robot hands, and like interacting with things using your actual robot hands. And then so when you take the helmet off and you look down and you don't have robot hands, it is a total mindfuck.
Yeah, it also does some really great character work, because it just really focuses on these two characters like the whole game.
Yeah, it's well written and great. Who's it? Ready at Dawn made that game? Yeah, it's a very talented studio that I've always really enjoyed their work, except for maybe Order. But all the other games that they've made are quite good. And so it's a phenomenal VR game that I realize most people will not play because it's VR. But if you ever have the chance and you can only play one VR game, this is absolutely the one I would recommend.
Who wants to do Prey?
Prey. Go for it. Someone.
Prey? I didn't enjoy Prey, so somebody else should go.
I enjoyed it.
I'll do it.
Yeah, please.
I really liked it. Am I the only person who really liked this?
No,
game?
I liked it a lot.
I liked it. I gave it, in my brain, I gave it like a solid B+. So that's where I am with Prey.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about this game. I agree with Dave Tack wrote a piece for our end of the year essays. That is basically, Prey is essentially the culmination of all of the lessons learned from this second wave of immersive sims that, System Shock 2 set the pace for that era, and then we get Prey, which takes just everything from all these games and constructs this ridiculously complicated space station that really should be System Shock 3. And there is like the rumor that it was going to be called that, but they couldn't get the naming. And I just think it is so playful in a way that these games have not been for me in the past few years. I think BioShock is an excellent game, but it set this precedent of self-seriousness, that like, to be an immersive sim, you also had to have like some weird philosophy bent that you're going to push upon the player. Deus Ex is the same way for me. Dishonored even gets a little bit into it. But here's a game that, I think we talked about it when we did it on the episode, but that there's a moment early on where you're exploring a lab and you're finding all of these notes about this terrifying weapon. And then when you finally actually find the blueprint, it has some, spooky name, and you create it, and it ends up being a Nerf gun. And then the Nerf gun has touch capacity on the end of it, and you can use it to open doors. And that just feels indicative of the entire game for me. It is spooky, and it's dark. I mean, there are dead bodies everywhere. You're constantly looking for dead bodies.
The Mimic in this game is probably my favorite monster of the year. Probably my favorite idea.
Shouldn't your favorite monster of the year be in any way pleasurable to combat in a fight? I would think that would be high on the list of video game enemy qualifications.
Sure.
I agree with Griffin. I like the Mimic. I think that you can.
It's a great idea. Once they mimicked, they are the biggest pain in the ass to fucking combat. I hate it. It's a part of why I didn't like the game.
combat doesn't feel good. Just like straight up, like all of these ways of playing around with the game and exploring the spaces and finding all these solutions to the different problems. The whole like immersive sim thing, like that is all great. The act of shooting a gun at the monster is bad.
Yeah,
I agree-ish, but I even then I still think the combat's more enjoyable than combat in its contemporaries. Like
Maybe I don't know that anybody's like really crushed it in that particular department.
And I don't think they will, because I think this is probably the last one we're going to get for a very long time.
So where's everybody out on these?
I just wanted to mention about Prey. My favorite thing about it is the again, like the character work it does, despite the fact that like I did a tweet like you fall in love with these characters by finding all these little details in their world, and it's not just audio logs, it's like their D&D character sheets. Yeah. And you learn about the relationships like through little interactions like that in a way that I think is way more organic and way more fleshed out and just like better than a lot of games that are just about that. Like we had Tacoma, which I enjoyed on this list, but Prey, even though it's this, big shooty shoot action game, I think does
Tacoma,
a better job.
Which I think you also found D&D character sheets.
Did you?
They were they were character sheets.
Oh yeah, that's right. So I guess that was a running theme this year. I don't know. I loved the characters in the game, despite the fact that like you did find them dead in a bathroom, like inevitably. Like
yeah,
they were
this
dead.
is kind of a recurring theme with games. I include Firewatch on this. If you find somebody's D&D character sheet, they're dead.
Yeah, they
guaranteed.
Yeah. I wouldn't say for me the reason that I would push towards Lone Echo and not Prey is because I think although Prey is a very good game and does very cool things, I think the writing and the story, which in a lot of cases for these types of games propels me through it, I think the world creation writing, like the character, D&D character sheets, stuff like that was good. I think the overall story was not very good at all.
I thought it was cool. Yeah, I thought it was great.
I thought it was neat. But I would still say, even though I have not played Lone Echo, I would still push towards Lone Echo because of the enthusiasm I've heard for it.
It's like one of my favorite games ever.
It is really astonishing.
I'm fine with that.
All right, Lone Echo goes to the next round. Prey, thank you for your participation.
Congratulations, everybody. You made it to the diarrhea round.
Oh, no.
This is what we call the wild card.
I'm just going to list... here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to list these 13 fucking games. And then everybody's going to...
We need to mention what we're doing. We have 13 games that we didn't want to cut because I think we wanted to talk about them. So we put them in this round. One winner will emerge. We have to move through it so quickly.
Here's the way I'm going to do it. Here's where I have a brilliant idea. I'm going to list all the games, and then we're going to take turns cutting them and see if there's a fight. Deal?
That'll be great. That'll leave one winner.
Perfect.
Fine.
Splatoon 2, SteamWorld Dig 2, Metroid Samus Returns, Mario plus Rabbids, Golf Story, Dead Cells, What Remains of Edith Finch, Snipperclips, Neo, Yakuza 0, Wolfenstein 2, Fire Emblem Heroes, Sexy Brutale. Fuck, it's been a good year for video games.
Yeah, it's been a good fucking...
Like, this could be a Game of the Year list in another year. Like, this could be a Game of the Year list.
Wolfenstein 2 is on here, and I feel like that's going to bum out a lot of people, but please refer back to our October episode where we were all kind of lukewarm on it, which is, I think we are way outside the norm on that, but whatever.
If it was very fun to play, it would be in the thing. Everything that is not playing the game is great.
Yeah.
So did we just cut Wolfenstein 2? Because
Griffin,
yes.
Yeah, that'll be my first one.
That's Griffin's cut. Okay. I'm going to cut. God, I actually like a lot of these games. I would cut Splatoon 2. It is a good video game, but I don't think it does enough past the original Splatoon.
Great single player, but I didn't actually play the multiplayer all that much. Weirdly enough,
I'm gonna make some blood come out right here. Metroid Samus Returns.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know you all hated it. It's fine. Let me just say before we cut it, I actually like this game more than SteamWorld Dig 2. I love both of those games, but I think this is an excellent, probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite.
I just didn't like
Metroid game.
I didn't like the controls.
I love.
Yeah, if it was on Switch, I would probably have played the whole thing.
It's not my favorite 2D Metro game. I take that back. Super Metroid is still that, but it's really fucking
and
good.
Metroid Fusion. Okay.
No, it's okay. I would cut Mario and Rabbids.
Wow.
I really like this game. I reviewed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. But I don't think it goes beyond that. I think it's very clearly like a XCOM like lift with more approachable controls and systems, but overall I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
it's back up to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut is it bad if I cut Edith Finch just because I never played it?
Yes.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
Oh man. Well, I like all these other games though. I will cut Sexy Brutale because I played the Switch version and it's not very good.
Incorrect. That's an incorrect assessment.
It is a bad port.
It's a very bad port.
Oh, you mean the port is not very good?
The port's not good. I thought it was cool, but
that's a whack reason to cut it. But thank you very much for your participation.
I have played this game, and looking at all the other games that I played on this list, it's my least favorite of all of them on there.
Okay, cool.
So there we go. Bye, Sexy Brutale.
I'm gonna cut Fire Emblem Heroes because
fuck you.
No Fire Emblem game has ever been fun, and Fire Emblem
You didn't
continues
play
that
it. Wait, Justin.
Fire Emblem
Justin,
continues
did you play
the proud tradition of not being a good. Yes, I've tried. I have tried every Fire Emblem's game for at least 90 minutes before I'm like, oh, this isn't fun. So I'm cutting Fire Emblem Heroes.
Follow-up question: can you confirm that this was a revenge for
payback for
No, I don't think any Fire Emblem game is good ever. And I'm going to keep playing them until I find the one that I really like.
All right, cut it.
Okay, fine.
Best mobile game of the year, though, maybe.
Wait, I thought we were able to push back on these.
Yeah, no, you can. It's just you would be incorrect.
Yeah, delete it. Cut. Go.
Okay.
Next.
No, okay. Can I give an actual? Was that?
Are you actually going to cut something legit?
Was that the mobile one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mobile
if
one.
I need Rush Frushtick to lean over my shoulder and tell me how to be good at something, then it is not an enjoyable game. Goodbye.
Well, there's a difference between being a pro at it, like I am, and just being like a normal human being, like most people are. And you can be a normal human being and play that game.
No,
All right.
no normal human.
Chris and Russ, we need cuts for this round for you.
Okay.
So what
Steam
would
World Dig 2?
Wow.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's very good, but it's like
God, I love Steam World Dig 2 though.
Justin.
I got really bad
turn.
diarrhea for like 3 days, and I played the whole thing during my convalescence. And
that's really tasty.
It's really great.
Justin, of these 6 games, which would make you the saddest to get cut?
No, Russ, just do it.
No, it would be Snipper Clips. I would be really
you fucking
sad.
liar. Okay, which would I cut? I would probably cut. I didn't play Neo or Yakuza.
We're at the point now where I think you have to cut. I think that's not a bad. Because a lot of this.
I didn't play those games.
A lot of the reasons
I
these
feel
ended
bad
up in the wild
cutting
card is
games.
because we didn't play them. So
Yeah.
Of the games that I played, I can cut Edith Finch.
Okay.
So sorry, Plant.
Back up to me. So Final 5, just to walk you in: Golf Story, Dead Cells, Snipper Clips, Neo, Yakuza 0. I played all these. I would cut, I think, Yakuza 0.
Oh, no way. Yakuza 0 is wildly better than Golf Story.
All right, go ahead and get Yakuza 0. All right, well, we know what Chris's pick is going to be, but I just didn't. I think the world of Yakuza 0 is really cool, but so many games that we've talked about in this list and cut, I just didn't have a whole lot of fun actually playing.
I actually really liked Yakuza 0. The only problem that I had with it is that I felt like I kind of had to play it with a guide to not miss stuff. It was kind of the same issue I had with Deadly Premonition.
You better say Fire Emblem Heroes because you literally just complained about that a second ago.
Deadly Premonition is one that
sure.
I always think I should get in. I think I would really love, but every time I end up playing it with the game facts open.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, Russ, Chris, get us down to the final one.
Okay, I'm gonna cut. I really liked all of these.
This is so dumb.
Probably. I would probably Neo. I really liked Neo very much, but I think Neo is building on.
Oh my gosh!
What's wrong with you, Chris?
Snipper Clips is so obviously going to survive, and it's the dumbest thing.
Snipper Clips is great.
Okay, Golf Story's gone, so now it's down to Fresh deciding between Dead Cells and Snipper Clips.
Dead Cells gets advanced. Congratulations, Dead Cells.
Dead
Great.
Cells.
Wait.
Great fucking game.
Honestly,
Absolutely.
Snipper Clips
I
is
picked
the
Dead
better of
Cells.
those two.
Well, too bad.
All right,
because
now
Dead Cells is fantastic.
these are the rules we did. Snipper Clips. Okay, we just shit on Snipper Clips a lot in there. It's my favorite co-op game of the year. It is hysterically funny.
It's very fun.
Very smart and a very good puzzle game. It is the game where whenever I have friends over and I want to show them what the Switch can do, I show them fucking Snipper Clips because it is so easy to fall in love with.
Yeah, if I'm honest, the only thing the thing that knocks Snipper Clips for me is that first I guess half hour I've done a bunch, and I don't think the fun necessarily extends beyond that half hour.
Oh, incorrect. Rachel and I played through all of this over the course of a week, and those final puzzles really, really require you to get to get like really good
it is-
communication going.
Yeah,
It's really fun.
it's a well-designed
This
game.
next one-
Nintendo knows how to make
this
good
next
games.
one-
I love Dead Cells.
This next pairing, we'll talk about Dead Cells more here in a second. It's fucking great. Round 4, Resident Evil 7, and obviously you've guessed what we're going to pair that with, Super Mario Odyssey.
Can I explain why I like these
Yes,
as
Chris,
a pair?
please.
Okay, so I think both these games are essentially remixes / I don't know, reboots in some capacity of their franchises. Like Resident Evil 7 is, from beginning to end, what would happen if we remade all of the Resident Evil games, starting with Resident Evil 1, ending with Resident Evil 6, inside of one game. And I think Super Mario Odyssey in a lot of ways is the same thing. It's this look back on the entire history of Super Mario.
That's one way to put it. I think if we want to pitch like 2 games that blew up their franchise for the better, then Breath of the Wild would be up against Resident Evil 7. But,
I agree.
Yeah, but I don't think Breath of the Wild like remakes the entire series. Like
what
Super
are you
Mario
talking
Odyssey
about?
No,
revisits
you're-
each
What are you
game.
fucking? It's an open world, like
Well, Zelda has been an open world for a very long time.
Let me
It's
like
less
when
of
I
a
say
survey.
remake.
Less of a survey
Right,
of
sure. Okay,
Zelda's
I got you.
past.
I
Yeah,
got you.
well, like Super Mario Odyssey is 100% like here is everything that Mario has
This
done.
might be my most heartbreaking round because holy shit did I fucking adore both of these games. They were incredible.
I will say for Resident Evil 7, I have not talk about pulling a franchise back from the brink. I mean, like just in a really bold way, like first person Resident Evil, like I think is a really, it's not unprecedented obviously, but like to envision a whole game that way, I think is really smart and fascinating. I think they made huge use of the shift in perspective, but also like just being really smart about how the world was created and making it feel real in a way that these games had not in a long time. My argument for if Resident Evil 7 throughout its entirety had maintained the promise of the first 2/3 of the game, it would be actually a really hard decision for me to make. But I think Resident Evil 7 loses its way so brutally once you get like basically a huge machine gun and nigh unlimited ammo. I think it becomes like a much different game and not one that like sustained the tension or sense of place. I think that the first 2/3 of the game have.
The rule of thumb is once you get on the boat, it loses my vote.
Can I? Oh my gosh! I'm gonna give
ridiculous.
a small counterpoint because I think we know where this round is gonna go. I think Resident Evil 7 is fantastic, beginning to end, and I love the boat section. I think that they made a game that starts out so slow and horrifying and builds again through the history of Resident Evil and is very compelling, and the action at the end is so good. I mean,
yeah.
It's a good version of what Resident Evil 6 could have been. It's I get that people like Resident Evil as that, like spooky in a mansion thing, but for what they set out to make, which I think is, action sequences at the end of this game, I think they're really, 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 really interesting and really spooky despite you having so much power. And just weird without getting lost. Like the problem that I feel like Capcom has made in the past with the action sequences is it's like, okay, well, you're in a spooky house. Oh, and by the way, now you're on a jet fighter. Oh, and you've landed on a volcano. Don't ask how those all fit
things
together.
that literally did happen in Resident. Yeah, these games are all about like. These games try to recreate the things that do happen. It's a survival horror game, right? And that's all about limited resources and things could jump out and kill you. But horror movies are all about the like accumulation of power that the hero goes through. Ash's getting the chainsaw arm, or the last survivor of the slasher flick building a trap that's going to kill the killer.
Predator.
Yeah. And the past couple of Resident Evil games have been like you start out as big burly military person with fucking 2 rocket launchers, and it's like, okay, well, I start out as Ash with the chainsaw. Resident Evil 7, my favorite in the series before this was 4, because 4 did this really well, I felt like. And 7, like, you start with a fucking shitty knife. And then by the end of it, you're like, all right, zombies, let's go. Let's do this thing. Like, I do think it does that really, really skillfully.
It's such a cool idea of scale that you start out on this, like, small house at the beginning of the game. I mean, obviously, the compound expands. And then you end up on the boat, the liner that is essentially responsible for the issues that are affecting the into like this family, that it goes from, micro to macro, and then all of it actually melds together. There's a logic to it, which I just feel like there has not been an internal logic that has worked so well for the series. Maybe 4, but even then, I think 7 works.
I don't know, Wesker.
Yeah.
How about that Wesker storyline?
So, Super Mario Odyssey, real quick, is just like I struggle with this because I think it might be my favorite Mario game. It's so fun to play. They have taken like every like maneuver that you've been able to do in a 3D Mario game before and sort of put them all together in a way that like really works, and then allowed you to use all of those different maneuvers to explore these massive worlds that aren't just huge, they are also like dense as hell, where every time you see something out of the corner of your eye that looks like, oh, I could jump a weird way onto that, you can, and you'll be rewarded for it. Like that's what platformers are all about, and I feel like I cannot think of a platformer that uses like every part of the platforming buffalo quite as well as Super Mario Odyssey does.
It is excellent.
It is so good, and the fact that I feel like also every Switch game we talk about, is it cheap to say like, and also you can take it out of your TV and play this huge, incredible game on the go? Like, I don't think that's unfair to say like, oh, and by the way, also it's portable, and that is bonkers.
It's interesting because we knock games for like, well, the platform doesn't like, whatever. PUBG on Xbox runs like dog shit, but like, is that the Xbox's fault? But maybe it goes the other way, which is to say like, well, the platform that it is on has all this added functionality, and I think you gotta.
I'll be straight up with
give
y'all.
it points for that.
I love the PS4 is like was my favorite console for a long time. I don't play it that much anymore unless there's like a console exclusive on it, because. And I think that's just because the Switch has spoiled me in a way. Not that there's a lot of games that are crossovers between those two. I just usually opt for the one that I as much as I travel, that I can take with me on the go. And that's why I've like my favorite games on the Switch, I have poured an enormous amount of time into, and 100% at all of them. And my PS4 doesn't get like quite as much use anymore. But yeah, it's Odyssey for me.
I'm going to abstain.
Really?
I didn't really play Resident Evil 7 because I was too scared.
That is fantastic.
Don't abstain.
You know what, Justin, what's your vote?
I would have to go Odyssey. I really like Resident Evil 7, but Odyssey is really a juggernaut, I think.
That's it then.
All right.
You want to vote just in...
I
told you. Y'all are cowards. This is going to be a hard round, and y'all didn't want to put in the work. I get it.
I was too scared.
Round 5.
Oh.
This is going to be a tough one, too, man. Nier Automata and Cuphead.
They both have...
this is not...
they both have shoot 'em up segments.
I will do Cuphead. How about that? And I'm going to do it short. Visually, there is no game that looks like Cuphead anywhere ever. It's never been done. It's going to be a very, very, very long time before anyone does it again in such an incredibly amazing, crazy fucking way. Cuphead is the best visually looking game of the year. I don't know. I love the visuals. They're amazing, revolutionary, incredible. And it was made by a very small team, and it is really a triumph of that and presentation and just like love and care for the source material.
I played it long after we had talked about it, and I just want to say, like, the story that people talk about when they talk about this game is like, oh, it's so hard, it's so punishing, it's so it's not as fun to play as it is to look at. And I want to disagree with that, like, wholeheartedly. I had a fucking ton of fun playing Cuphead. I thought it was super fun. I think that it boils down and condenses this idea of learning boss patterns and mastering those, which is something that is implemented in all kinds of games, Mega Man, Dark Souls, Monster Hunter, all of these games. It condenses that down in a really genuinely brilliant way, where I felt like I was never just like bashing my head against these boss fights. I was always, always, always learning and improving in a way that was so satisfying. I adored Cuphead. I thought it was great.
Cuphead's great. They've also fixed a lot of the parts that I feel weren't fair when it first launched. There were a handful of spots that were bad. And even then, they were kind of hesitant to agree that they were bad. But I think after enough pushback happened with fans that they've since smoothed what few rough edges remained. That said,
Plant, how many iframes do you need to really be happy in life?
I don't. I'm not even going down this road. That said, congratulations, Cuphead. It was really nice that we got to talk about you.
No. I want to talk about Nier Automata.
What?
I want us to talk about Nier Automata. I don't want this to be one of those rounds where we just dump one of these in a fucking toilet.
No, we can talk about it, but we're going to talk about it later. Nier Automata is the best game of the year, maybe. It is. Which part should I talk about? Should I talk about like the very like basic stuff that Platinum Games, which is known for creating elaborate combat mechanics, partnered with a person who is known for big ideas and creative story, but technically lacking video games, and it was a marriage made in heaven. It turns out that if you take somebody who has great ideas and pair them with people who have technical know-how, that the end result is this game that, in a lot of ways, is the final draft of a game that has been made 2 or 3 times before this. I think it is exceptional. I think it does combat very well. Maybe not as well as Cuphead, because that's all Cuphead is.
Yeah, this is another, maybe this is the round of games that I played long after we had talked about them. I got like a couple of the endings, and like that shit is obviously very cool, and the presentation is like unparalleled, but I was left kind of cold by the combat. I found it like really repetitive and not super satisfying. But
how many times did you like get to credits?
I mean, I got some of the weird, silly. I got a lot of the weird, silly ones. But I got two of them. I got 2 of the complete endings, which okay. I know there's another one beyond that. But I found myself butting heads with, I want to see all the cool stuff that I know this game has to show me, and it's so pretty to look at and listen to, and the presentation again, it's fantastic. But I was butting my head up against the fact that like I want to see what else this game has tucked away, what else this game has hidden. I just don't want to go hack and slash and shoot the same stuff again, because I'm kind of bored with that.
So you don't do that, which is the good thing, because the whole like repeating the game is a myth. It's totally different games, especially once you get to 3rd, 4th, 5th ending.
Totally.
3rd, 4th, and 5th ending are literally different stories.
But you are still hacking. Like,
well, sure,
I feel what you're saying. I'm not saying like you play through the same levels, but as a different character. You're not, Simon Belmont now going through the tower. It's obviously like there's more to it than that, but it still felt kind of samey.
I know for me, it's Nier Automata, which I thought was brilliant. I'm having trouble keeping like an argument in my head that like just dismisses Cuphead out of hand, because almost anything I would level at Nier Automata, like it's inspiring to see what they do. Like with mechanics, I guess the best thing I could say about Nier Automata versus Cuphead is I am a total sucker for games that, for a long time, people use games to tell movie stories, and I think that's still a huge prevalent issue. Using game, and there are some games that have sort of contorted to service it. Like I think you've seen like Call of Duty twist itself up in knots trying to tell movie stories with video games as a medium. I'm a huge sucker for games. Some companies
do it well. Like Naughty Dog does it well. Like Naughty Dog, very few can actually like pull it off.
Can pull it off because you are straining the medium. And then there are games like I would say like Braid or
all the Zero Escape games.
The Zero Escape game
crush it.
Yeah, or even things like Her Story. I think that like use what is strong about video games to tell a story very well suited to them. And I think Nier is such a huge accomplishment in that. The story of Nier does not work as a movie. The story of Nier works as a video game because it is using the strength of the medium to tell the best story possible.
And the weaknesses.
Thank you, Chris. That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's vote, because I think we're going to be talking more about Nier. I'm not being contrarian. I loved Cuphead, and I very much liked Nier, but my vote would be Cuphead, but I think I'm probably in the minority here.
Abstain.
No, come on. I'm done with that. You get one round where you can do that. This is the Besties. We get fucking sloppy here.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I'm gonna vote based on the pitches because I really have not played enough Nier to really weigh in on that part. But based on the enthusiasm, I will vote Nier.
Based
I,
on the sheer tonnage of conversations about Nier Automata we've had in
that
every
says
episode
something.
this year, it definitely says something. Yeah.
Granted, it says something about Fire Emblem Heroes that I talked about in every episode, but it also says something about Nier. So I think I gotta give it to Nier.
All right.
To be honest,
2 more first rounds. God,
I can take.
Round
this
6
round 6
is Persona 5.
Weird way to say
it. Persona 5 versus
Jesus Christ.
Persona 5 versus Divinity Original Sin 2.
I'll take Persona 5 because when I put it when we were putting it on the list, people were like, "Wait, I thought this was a bad game."
Plant, did you play Divinity?
I literally am just starting it. I feel bad.
Okay, so no.
Justin's played some, right?
I didn't play
Some.
Divinity.
Okay, well, Juice, you take Divinity. I'll start with Persona 5. Persona 5, I felt like was never going to live up to my expectations. Persona 4, specifically Persona 4 Golden for the Vita, is my favorite game of all time. Not being hyperbolic, it is my favorite game of all time. And so like Persona 5, as storied as its history was, where it was supposed to come out in like fucking 2013, and then did not come out until spring of 2017. The hype cycle for that was pretty wild. And so like, I thinking back like about the episode of Besties we did, where I was like pretty disappointed because it did not live up to those expectations. I feel like it's kind of colored the conversation about it a little bit. But I mean, it's been months and months now since I played it and I beat it all, 80, 100 hours, whatever. And looking back, like I'm very positive on it because it is a very fucking good RPG that does a lot of the things that Persona does, that is like defines the series. It does it really well. The environment is like incredible. I love spending time in like virtual representations of Tokyo, and this game's representation of Tokyo is like really great. The characters are maybe not quite as vibrant and memorable as in Persona 4, but they are still really fun and really great. It's still a really cool idea for a story and for a game of living out this year in real time and going on these like exciting adventures with your friends who you become closer to in the downtime. All of that stuff is great. And also it has really cool RPG systems. Like, I will say I didn't like it as much as Persona 4, but like combat in this game and exploration throughout the dungeons, which are not randomized this time around. They're like actual dungeons with puzzles you have to solve and things you have to do to like get around them, is like way more fun. And for all that said, like I think it's a really tremendous RPG and is not, is not maybe what I wanted from the next Persona game, but I still love it for what it is. So I think it's great, and I think that maybe if I was too hard on it in the episode where we talked about it, it's because I had just beaten it, and this game kind of falls apart in the last like fifth of the game. But everything before that is money, baby.
Divinity Original Sin 2 is an open world RPG, action RPG, I guess technically, yeah.
No, it's not an action RPG. What are you talking about?
Okay, so here's the thing.
You want me to do Divinity Original Sin 2 because I played it for a long time also.
I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, Divinity Original Sin 2 was on this list. And I have no explanation for that. I think it is. I could see a certain subset of people very much enjoying the Divinity thing. I have tried it now twice, and for me, there's just not enough sort of structure getting me from A to B. I feel lost a lot of the time playing these games. I think that there's still a ton they
feel
can
like
do with.
Don't they feel like the original like Fallout, like that era of CRPG?
No, it doesn't, because I think they do. No, it's so much.
Griffin, can you walk us through this?
Please, God, let me talk about Divinity Original Sin 2. It doesn't feel like an old school CRPG. It feels like the reason that it is on everybody's like lips this year, except for ours apparently, is that it is a fucking like genius refinement of what those RPGs are. Like it is the idea of CRPG is the name of the genre, right? I'm not getting that wrong.
It's a computer RPG.
Is that really what CRPG stands for?
I always thought that's what
I
the
thought
C
it
was.
Yeah, I guess so. Computer role-playing game. Okay, so like, right, the original Fallout, right? You have action points that you can use to move around and then take actions on your turns or whatever. And yes, Divinity Original Sin 2 does that also from this isometric view where you're going around and meeting characters and getting quests and all that RPG shit. But it does that, and it layers it. And Divinity Original Sin 1 did this as well. Is it layers all these very physical systems on top of that, where you can use your big burly character to throw a barrel of water on the ground, and then use your magic user to electrify it, or throw a torch into a cloud of flammable gas that you've created around a bunch of enemies to nuke them that way. Like it does. So and in doing that, it manages to break this RPG cycle of, okay, you've got to have a healer, got to have a wizard, got to have a thief, and you got to have a tank. And now it's like, okay, well, now you have somebody who can shapeshift into, a fucking shark or whatever, but they can also cast oil onto the ground, which your ranger can shoot a flaming arrow onto. Like it shatters the thing that, and some RPGs have tried to do that, say like, okay, you don't need the traditional party structure, but at the end of the day, like that is still what works. And Divinity Original Sin 2, like it doesn't have to be like that. There are so many different ways to play it because of how it has evolved the genre.
I regularly got into situations in Divinity Original Sin 2, including, and I would level this at the first Divinity, where like things would go bad in a combat encounter and I would have like no idea why, or fights would start with people that I did not want to begin, or and the inventory management is a bear and a huge pain in the ass. And like I think the amount of flexibility they're giving people is great. I just like the lack of structure just left me feeling like bewildered a lot of the time and not really enthused to, like, when you get into a fight and like all of a sudden just like all your characters are dead and it's like it's just not enjoyable to me.
And that's what it's complicated, and I will give you that. But I think you're being a little bit hyperbolic in that, like, there's probably not a situation where you start a fight and all of your characters are like.
You want me to load my save up, Griff? Because I guarantee that there is a situation where I went to break somebody out of jail or something, and like the different situations can play out in very different ways, and I think that's laudable. But it also makes it feel to me like a lot of the times, like, I didn't have a great idea of where I was supposed to be going or what I was supposed to be doing, and I just would like a little bit more structure. And that probably comes down to personal taste, because a lot of people really love this game series.
That was the connection I was trying to make with like Fallout 1 and 2 on PC, is the lack of guidance is like very exciting for a lot of people, and the way that the lack of guidance in Skyrim and those games is very exciting is that you feel like you can go anywhere, and wow, I found this side quest that I didn't know was even here, and I did some cool shit that I wasn't expecting. And I think a lot of people do like that, but it's also very intimidating
it's worth mentioning, I think, at this point, and it's something that people don't talk about a lot. And like, I think for people, and it obviously doesn't extend to everybody on this call, but for people who do write about games and talk about games for a living, I constantly feel a pressure of like, there are always 6 other things that I need to play to like keep abreast of stuff. And I do not, as a rule, extend a lot of patience to games that demand me to really invest a ton of time before I really like grok the entire thing. Like I am
that
looking for
that preference has to be there first in order for you to. It's a question of, I talked about this I think during Absolver, and that like I played Absolver and I was like, this is cool, but I know that if I want to get good at it, I'm going to have to invest a lot of time into it, and I don't trust this game enough based on where I'm at to do that, and so I walk away. And that I feel like happens a lot with CRPGs, and like, this is cool, but I also know it's going to be a couple hundred hours of just wandering around and finding my own way through the world. And do you have that trust while you're playing it to make that
I think
investment?
is what broke Divinity for me, is that I know the bulk, I know the size of the experience that I'm undertaking, and if I felt sort of like not propelled from the beginning, and I didn't feel that way in this game. I didn't feel like I just have to see the next thing that happens, because I wasn't clear a lot of times on what that would be or where that would be. If I was feeling a little bit lost in the beginning, I just didn't have the trust, I think is a good word for it, that like it was something I wanted to continue to like sink a bunch of time into. We have talked about both of these for way too long.
CRPGs are, I sort of now lump them into like the same category as like fighting games and Dirt 2, where it's just like these are genres that are, I feel like, very esoteric in a way, where if you are into them, it's your favorite shit and you celebrate and this is
it's like Monster Hunter is
and I'm not trying
to
to diminish them in any way, because I think Divinity Original Sin 2 is a really great game, but I did stop playing it after the first act for pretty much the same reason, where I was like, okay, that was really fun and very cool, but I it's not my like exact jam, and it would kind of have to be, in order for me to sink all of the time into it, that would be required to see it through.
I think it's worth saying that this is the Besties is the best games from the four of us. The Besties.
For sure.
Yes.
Played them.
And so like Divinity Original Sin 2 could be number one on a lot of lists. Unfortunately for us, I have a feeling it's Persona 5.
Hell yeah.
Before we cut Divinity Original Sin entirely, I do want to ask you guys one question. Which has the worst title, Divinity Original Sin 2 or PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds?
They're both pretty bad, man.
They're both very bad titles, but I will say congrats to Persona 5.
All right.
Last round of these initial offerings is we're titling this round apologies to Bennett Foddy.
The Slaughter.
Yeah. This is as close to a sacrificial lamb as we get in this one. Breath of the Wild versus Getting Over It.
Somebody talk about Getting Over It.
Yeah, Plant, you're pretty prolific about
okay, I'll talk about why these two are going up against each other. Because they're both climbing simulators is the idea. You spend so much time in Breath of the Wild climbing your little heart out, trying to get over little mountains, trying to get over it, and then Getting Over It is an actual climbing simulator, and that you are a nude. I can't decide if you are what's his name?
You think you don't have underwear on inside that cauldron?
Well, who's the creator of The Witness?
Jonathan Blow.
Jonathan Blow.
You're the top half of Jonathan Blow with a goatee, and then like your guts and a cauldron, or your Giant Bomb's Alex Navarro. I can't decide who you are.
You're both. You're
both at the same time.
Yes.
You're a fusion, and you use a sledgehammer to climb up all sorts of stuff, while Bennett Foddy really guides you along. What I like about Getting Over It is that people who don't write about video games for a living haven't had the experience of playing a video game with the person who created it. And sometimes that can be not great. But every once in a while, you have these moments where you're with somebody, especially on smaller games, where they so deeply love the game and they're providing all these insights while you're playing it about like, oh, here's actually why we did exactly that thing. Here's the game that I was playing when I made this. Oh, hey, you fell down? Don't worry, you're doing the right thing. Just keep going. It's a really interesting experience, and I think Bennett made that into a game. The game knows what you're doing. It has a sense of he has QA'd it so perfectly that he knows where the mistakes will be. And then when you make those mistakes, audio cues come over to inspire you and motivate you to keep going. And I really like that because I think so many Massacre games, they really pride themselves in this, I don't know, almost like antagonizing the player. Well, I think Bennett likes that the challenge is valuable, not the meanness or the rudeness. That the beauty of the game is that you will overcome this thing, and he is here to help you. And he's built a world that is totally fair. It's challenging, but you can do this. And he is there to keep reminding you that that's possible.
I would play an infinite number of these types of like developer commentary baked in. I loved the beginner's guide for this same reason, and it's such a, I mean, is there another game in this genre? Like, I'm having trouble obviously there's games with developers commentary.
Magic Circle is
Magic Circle, yeah, a game about game development. Although that one obviously had a layer of fiction. Magic Circle is fucking great.
But I would also say about Getting Over It, like, I think you can play it without that, and it's still like an incredibly well-designed, interesting game. The way I think of Getting Over It is almost closer to like a turn-based strategy game than it is what is a climbing sim, literally.
Yeah.
Insofar as the way it's designed is that for a lot of it, you can really, really think about, I'm going to do this, and then this, and then this. And there's this build up, almost like you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you're trying to like gut yourself into jumping off into water safely. But essentially it's like, I'm going to do this, but let me think this through first. And you think through all the steps, and then what was a turn-based strategy game becomes an action adventure game almost, where you have to then execute on that very specific plan. And if you don't, you're probably going to fail. And I love how predictable it is, and also how punishing it is, because it all the fault is your own.
Yeah.
Like, you know why you fucked up, because you didn't do that exact thing that you wanted to do while you were fucking around. And
yes,
it's very good. I love it. It's not going to beat
Breath
Zelda,
of the Wild,
but
real quick, because we're going to talk about it a lot, is the best game that was released in 2017 AD. So last night, actually, it's funny, I started playing it again when the DLC came out. I started over completely, started playing through Master Mode, which was really fucking great. Can't recommend it enough. I just got the final shrine. I 100% of the game last night, and I think it's so brilliant. And I think the thing that I like, I struggle with talking about this game because it feels very I feel like I am reductive when I talk about it, in that I say like, oh, it's just great, like it's just like it's fucking incredible. But what I feel like is tangible, like the tangible thing about it, why I think it is the game of the year, is that it took this genre of open world games that I was just kind of done with. I've bounced off of so many open world games over the past like forever. Horizon Zero Dawn was one this year where I was just like, okay, it's just open world, and I feel kind of exhausted by it. Breath of the Wild takes an open world game with a massive, really, truly remarkable open world and fills it with stuff to do. And every time you do that stuff, it never feels like repetitive. It breaks this like cycle that open world games have, which is just like, okay, go and then level up, and then, you know, whatever ways that you play the game, you specialize in those a little bit more, and then all of a sudden your melee attacks are a little bit stronger, or your fire magic is a little bit stronger. Breath of the Wild doesn't do that. You get like really, I mean, obviously you get better weapons and stuff like that, but you have like 6 powers that you get in the first hour of the game. That's pretty much it. And then it's up to you to figure out a way to make those work. And each of like the shrines has like really clever ways of, you know, forcing you to think about those different powers. It feels so like everything you find in the world feels exciting. And I don't know that I can say that about, I adore Skyrim. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But at the end of the day, like, you're just getting stronger spells and attacks and stuff like that you can use to solve, you know, problems. And Breath of the Wild is not about that. It's about more finding dynamic solutions with a much more limited and much more static kind of power set.
Okay. So that's it, right? Breath of the Wild?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously. So back up to the top, we have 4 rounds here of these 8 games that we're going to winnow down, and we're going to try to move a little more quickly, I think, in these rounds. Round 1, Horizon Zero Dawn versus PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Do we want to take a half time to hear from one of Russ's beloved guys?
Absolutely not.
No one was really, I didn't invite anyone. Like, I don't see why anyone would come by.
Well, and then do they usually wait for an invitation, these wonderful creations that you've got sort of kicking around up there in Russ's world?
I mean, they tend to be pretty polite on that front. Like, they usually just come by when they're invited. So, it's... Hello?
Is somebody at the door?
Somebody's at the table, I think.
That's not my house, though. That's someone else's house.
Is somebody under your table right now and wants to come say hi, Russ?
It's not my table. Someone else was knocking.
I
so
guess
our
nobody...
round 1.
Are we really, after all that fucking build-up, we're not...
Who's knocking? One of you guys might have a person in your house.
So Horizon Zero Dawn
Jesus
versus...
Christ. What a terror. I can't, no. I refuse. I will not participate in the rest of the podcast. People are going to get so angry if we do all that. And one of Russ's beloved creations doesn't show up. One of his wonderful Jeff Dunham-like head creations. Please. I need something.
Honestly, like, If they were here, I'd say hello. It sounded like there was some knocking somewhere else, but I don't know where that was.
So, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds versus Horizon Zero Dawn. What a odd...
Hey, yo, it's me, New York Giraffe. I'm in Texas. What up?
Wait, oh shit, he's in here with me, guys. Oh my god, I've never had to look at him before. This is horrible.
Griffin, talk to me for a second.
Yeah.
Am I wearing this hat properly? Is this the way you wear this hat?
You are actually wearing a Jamiroquai hat right now.
Yes, correct.
And you have it on your giraffe wiener. And so, no, could you mind if I fix it?
Yeah, please fix it. Whoa, watch yourself.
No,
watch yourself.
This is all unacceptable, and I'm gonna pull your pants up for you because I know you have trouble with that with the hooves.
Well, there's also it's 2 pairs of pants that are connected by a belt that goes across my waist, which is quite large.
Okay,
as you
I'm
can
glad
see.
that we've solved the how would a giraffe wear pants meme argument.
Trust me, it took me at least a few weeks to figure that one part out.
All right, now I'm gonna put that on your head, on top of these two weird
Sorry,
antlers.
you just described assless chaps. You talked about stockings. That's what you're wearing?
Well, it's 2 large pairs of jeans. I got a bunch of denim at Costco in bulk, and then I sewed those up on each leg. There's basically 2 pairs, so 1 pair of pants per 2 legs, and then there's a long belt around the center.
Justin just fucking left. Justin don't want no part of New York.
Justin, you have no.
I fully have muted my microphone. I'm just like going through email and stuff, just whatever to distract me from what's happening here.
Well, honestly, Justin, if you have any advice, hat-wise or belt-wise, I'm open to it. But personally, the Jamiroquai hat was why I came, because I wasn't 100% sure that this is how people dressed in Texas. I was told big hats are a big deal, and also moving floors in rooms.
You came to Texas to find out if it's okay to wear a Jamiroquai hat.
Not okay.
In the state
No.
of Texas.
Not okay. I want to fit in. I want to be a local. I don't want to look like a tourist when I'm cruising around Austin Street.
Well, let me just tell you, I think you look great. Yeehaw!
Is this Texarkana?
It's Texas Giraffe, your long-lost brother.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I didn't know. Wait, we're related?
Yeah, buddy. You want some barbecue eucalyptus leaves or whatever the fuck we eat?
It's weird because I'm used to wishing that Russ Frushtick will have an early and hilarious death, but it's not common for me to feel this way about my own flesh and blood. It's weird.
I don't know what you're talking about. Griffin's right here. I'm right here. It's not me. It's not me. Him.
It's getting a little crowded, I gotta be honest, in this house, Griffin.
Particularly in the ceiling area because of our long necks.
Yeah, what is your name, by the way?
Texas Giraffe.
And how are
you're
you
called
related
Texas
again?
Giraffe.
We are one hive mind, I guess.
Texas Giraffe. Let me ask you something. If you were playing like PUBG, how do you recommend I get into the plane?
Well, that's a ridiculous question.
Because honestly, I've thought about it a lot, to be honest.
Yes.
And I think the only way you could do it is fit 2 giraffes side by side and then have the necks go down the plane by bending them down. But honestly, that doesn't seem very comfortable for the several hours you might be on the plane. I don't know how long it takes.
It's a virtual world. You're too deep into the simulation.
Texas Giraffe, I have an important question for you.
Yes?
It coughed twice if you had been locked in Griffin's house for the past 4 years of us doing this show.
Well, I tell you, I've been hiding out in here, actually.
You've been hiding. Is there a basement?
I've been hiding out in here. There's not a basement in the Alamos. A fun Pee Wee Herman joke. But tell you what, people want to get my neck meat for the barbecue.
What?
And it seems
they put giraffe meat in the barbecue.
Yeah, it's a real epidemic going around right now. And I'll tell you a buddy of mine who can tell you all about it. It's a close friend of mine, also part of sort of symbiote. And that's my good buddy, West Virginia Giraffe.
Oh, hey, West Virginia Giraffe. What's going on?
He's shy.
Oh, no.
West Virginia Giraffe, you ain't gotta be shy. Just chip on in on the podcast people listen to.
Hey,
you must not be related.
I've been cooking up a lot of great racist stuff to say, and I'm not going to edit any of it out. because that decision will lie with Justin. Here we go. Y'all wanted it. Here we go.
No, hold on. I got another friend here on the podcast
from
hold
Turkmenistan.
on. I just want to tell you one thing is that we don't espouse that sort of thing around here. Isn't that right, other Texas giraffe?
Wait, there's another Texas giraffe?
Yes, it's going to be 4 giraffes podcasts. And then we got a special...
Hi, y'all.
Okay, we got...
It's so nice of you to invite me to the show, y'all.
Is that East Texas? Where is that?
I come from a place deep in Texas where we keep it real slow.
Horizon Zero Dawn is interesting
goes
because
on all day and the day goes on all night.
Hey everybody, this is Jeffrey, the Toys R Us Giraffe. Thank you for having me on the guest on this week's episode of it's a big get, and I've only got a few minutes, so anything you want to ask me, Jeffrey, the Toys R Us Giraffe, and I got to
Jeffrey, are the toys free?
For me?
You just get as many toys as you want, or do you have to pay a percentage? How's that work?
I have to pay double.
Double?
Yeah, because I have to hire somebody to play with them for me. I just have these 4 silly hoofs. And
have you tried using your mouth for playing?
Believe me, I have.
Didn't work out.
If you know what I mean.
Oh, yes, I know.
Hi,
anything
I'm
you want to say?
From Battle Beasts. Who can forget that infamous Hasbro toy line?
Hey, quick question. Any of you guys want some Hollywood cocaine? Got it from, it's not a big, you'd say no if you want. It's, more for me, but,
Wait, is that Hollywood Giraffe?
No, this is still Jeffrey.
Oh, that's Jeffrey. You live in Hollywood now?
Giraffe.
Yeah, after I selling out all the kids' catalogs and doing all the great commercials, they've sort of retired me, I guess, because Griffin doesn't see me around as much anymore. But now I'm in Hollywood with all my favorite other animal celebs, Air Bud, the dog from the Target commercials, Grumpy Cat, who actually gave me this Hollywood cocaine, and
hello, I am another giraffe.
Whoa, which one is he?
I'm a robotic one from Horizon Zero Dawn, the first game that we've got in the running for the next round of the Besties.
Okay.
Horizon Zero Dawn versus...
I'm gonna step out and do some blow.
I got us out! I got us out! Russ!
I'm going to... Hey, this is Griffin again. I'm going to deploy a neurotoxin that kills all giraffes. Just I'll inject it into the air.
Can I just do this blow first, real quick?
No. This is a drug-free podcast. Straight edge besties. Poof. Okay, they're all dead. What's our first game in the second round?
Horizon Zero Dawn versus PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah. So, shit. I mean, how do we want to structure this? Because we can't just talk about how great these games are. I think we have to talk about why one beats the other, right? And for me, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is...
Can I talk about PlayerUnknown's?
Yeah, please.
Because it's been a while, but I did very recently talk about it in an essay, so it's sort of fresh in mind. It's not been a while since I played it. I play it every week, as we all know. But in terms of talking about it on the podcast, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, Plant earlier talked about Horizon sort of summing up and the open world style of play and perfecting it and making it really great, but we've all seen that game before. PUBG feels like a brand new generation of shooters, and obviously there were progenitors to this with the mods and stuff like that, but for the most part, as a standout solely existing game, this is the first. PUBG feels like the first game in this generation that is exploring this brand new way to play a shooter. And I 100% believe that 3 years down the road, every AAA shooter company will be trying to copy PUBG. It is that influential, and that much of a shift from how shooters have been played. So much so that 5 years ago, if you asked me where shooters are going, I couldn't have told you because this is so different from anything I would have possibly guessed.
Let's enjoy this honeymoon, by the way, before all of those clones do come out and shooter franchises that are not built from the ground up for these sort of battle royale experiences try to do them and will not be very good.
See,
I don't think.
I disagree, and I would like to make just so we have it, here's my good faith argument for Horizon Zero Dawn ahead of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. And again, please understand that I'm participating in a debate style format, and this is not necessarily like the belief that I hold true in my heart. But the argument that I would make is that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds made a very, very, very strong basis, a very strong skeleton, and then from where I sit has made just as many sort of like bad or inert decisions about that very good bones throughout the year that it has been extremely popular. I feel like in the hands of a more skilled, experienced, maybe even staffed, I have no insight into that, developer, this very, very, very strong premise, base concept, base ideas could be executed in a way that is much friendlier to new players, much more accessible, much more thrilling, much more easy to sort of find your way into and have a pleasurable experience every time. And I am very much looking forward to that because I think that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds completely has coasted in this last year on the strength of its core premise and has not done anywhere near enough to continue to evolve it in this year. And that is, it probably sounds like I'm laying fault at the feet of Bluehole, and I'm not necessarily. I think that they were sort of caught off guard by what a big thing this became and spent a lot of time trying to play catch up. But as great of a core idea as it is, I think that like even stuff you're seeing with like, there's a good version of the game that, or I should say, a much improved version. That and once you see like how far even like that, the small changes in that take the game.
You're talking about 1.0 with the mantling and all that?
Yeah. I think there's huge room for improvement here, and I think that like a lot more could have been done on that end. And like on the flip side of that, I think that Horizon Zero Dawn is building on an established structure, but has made so many great gameplay decisions to really refine that into something that's like so fluid and so engaging and really sweeps you from beginning to end. And that is my best argument that I can muster.
I would say to counter that, like the PUBG succeeds because it is finely tuned. Like PUBG succeeds. I disagree that there are these big broad things that they could do to change the experience or make it more inviting, which I would disagree with that also, because it is inviting. I don't play these fucking games at all. I don't play military sim PC shooters like this, and yet this year I have spent like 250 hours playing this one.
Nonsense. If you jumped into PUBG never having watched anything or have someone to guide you through playing it initially, you would have a miserable time with this game.
Okay, but Bud, not nonsense. It's literally what I did. I saw that there was this game.
I basically did the same thing as well.
That's disingenuous. Like, this is...
You didn't do any sort... Like, okay, so you didn't read anything. You didn't watch any videos. You didn't have anybody talk to you about how to get better at the game.
All I knew was the idea of how the game worked.
It's
and I spent the first, my first match of PUBG was literally hiding in a closet in the same building for 15 minutes. And it was like scary as shit. And then I was like, oh no, I need to run. Also, and I didn't understand the blue circle.
That's a weird argument to leverage against the game.
I just want to hop on everything that Justin talked about, because I think everything Justin said is totally fair, but I think also speaks to like his personal taste. And this is the thing that we kind of touched on with Divinity. Like, Horizon is a fantastic game that will hold your hand through large chunks of it, and you never feel lost. It is very, 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 very polished, maybe more so than, graphically speaking, any other game this year. And PUBG is the opposite. It is in development through most of this time. I don't agree with the word coasting, because I think the game coming out is the object.
And not only that, they were releasing a patch every week.
Yeah, with new shit in it.
Horizon is coasting because they just didn't keep updating it. I don't fully agree with that, but I think we're really talking about basically the old school style of making a game, which is, hey, we know this formula works. We can polish it in these directions. We will release it. It will be a complete product when it ships, versus the new school style, which is, here's a wild idea. We've experimented with it a while. We're going to put it out into the world, and we're going to hone it. It's like kind of amazing that these two games are going up against each other, because I don't know if we could have found two better ends of that same spectrum.
Okay, hi, my name is Justin McElroy. I play a character called Justin McElroy who thinks that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is not should lose in this round of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, this is my favorite character.
Yeah,
it's a weird character.
I hope I've played it well. I was just trying to generate conversation. I obviously think PlayerUnknown's is fucking genius.
Yeah, it's fucking.
And anytime I talk about it, I just want to go play it. And I do not feel that way about Horizon Zero Dawn, which I think is an exceptional game. But I think we should
Horizon Zero Dawn is not even the best like open world game that came out this year. Which
okay, let's just go ahead and pass it on over. Thank you, Horizon Zero Dawn, for coming by.
I do feel like we have not had a round yet where we talk about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and what's cool and what is.
I think
it's
going to have.
I think it'll happen in the last.
Yeah,
maybe. The
I actually wish
semifinals
these were. You know what? Can I make a suggestion? And I'm just gonna if you all are okay with this, I'm gonna do this.
I'm not really used to us changing the rules midway through, so I don't know. If
I'm just
comfortable with
changing the
this.
order of these to make the seating. a
Well,
little
I wanted
more-
to put off this next round as long as we possibly could because it's gonna get. It's every round from now on, except maybe round 3 here is gonna be absolutely a bloodbath. But let's do round 2, which is Super Mario Odyssey versus Nier Automata. Oh man.
Oh God.
This is.
Can we do? I'm gonna do a flash poll. Just flash poll right now around the table.
Super Mario Odyssey.
Mario.
Nier.
Okay, yeah, see, this is going to be it. I don't know how we solve this one because, again, it's two completely different games that succeed in different ways. Can we do this? Because I don't like how that last round played out. Let's talk about what makes these games good and not dunk on the other one so that yours wins. Because I just think Super Mario Odyssey is... I talked about in the first round how it succeeds by doing all the things that the series has ever done well and combining it into one very, very cool package. But I think that is also kind of reductive because I think there's also a lot of very cool stuff going on here as well.
Well, let me. A serious question. Speaking as someone that did not play a ton of Nier, I started it, I tried a little bit, didn't play a ton of it. I've heard a lot from people like Christopher Plant over the years complain about games that require you to play a lot before you get to the real juice of the matter. And what I've heard a lot from you guys, and please defend this because I'm genuinely curious, what I've heard a lot is, oh, you didn't play ending 4, you clearly didn't see the best part. And that, to me, is a big fucking problem.
I can take that. Is that okay by you, Justin?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I would say is, yes, that is true. That is a complaint I have often. That's usually with games that I find insufferable until hour 50. I think there are certain RPGs that are there essentially is no game. You're just reading. You are learning systems that you will not use for a very long time, and then the game starts and the game is fun. I would say the pleasure of Nier, and I think Justin, you and I had a kind of a similar reaction to this, and it's why we kept bringing it up month to month. Is you play the first push through it, and you're like, hey, this is a good game. This is a solid, competent action game. I get why people like it. It does a few interesting things, and then you start the next round, and it starts to call into question lots of why and how that game worked. It does the thing that I usually don't like, which is the Spec Ops Line thing, where
what if you're bad the whole time?
Can you believe you did that?
Yeah,
but it doesn't. That's not what it ultimately ends up committing to. It ends up calling into question that idea. A lot of the game is a criticism of what we enjoy about games, but also why people make games to begin with.
Yeah.
And what it means to what is it? We play video games and there's the idea of violence. Hey, we're playing a game and we're shooting people and oh, that's training us to shoot people. But the question this game gets at, which is deeper, is we're creating artificial ideas or entities with some form of intelligence anyway. What does it mean that we design these things to then kill them? And what does it mean to be creators and to be stewards of the art that we create and the artificial intelligence that we create? And what does it mean to ultimately leave behind all of human civilization for whatever this kind of intelligence will be that maybe one day will surpass us?
Westworld.
Near Automata doesn't shame you for like it lets you fight a bunch of robots in the style of like so many games. It lets you fight and kill a bunch of robots, but it doesn't shame you for fighting those robots like without really questioning it. What it does is it raises the question, and I think it doesn't provide like easy answers, but it raises the question of like, was that okay? Why did you do that? And I think it's content to like have you stew on those questions rather than position itself as something that has all the answers. Like it which would have been, I think, a much easier thing to do is like to humanize these robots on a later playthrough and then force you to feel terrible about it. Like it continues to push the question like, okay, but what if it is bad? What if they are? What if this artificial intelligence is trying to wipe out humanity? Is it then okay? Like, or is it cool then?
And
I
what
think
does
that,
it
like,
even mean to like give them artificial intelligence? One of my favorite parts is I won't get into hyper specifics, but near the end of the game, one of the characters gives these robots an ability to kind of comprehend fear and anxiety, and
It goes
where
great.
that goes,
It goes really well.
It goes, yeah. Well, yeah. It goes in a number of directions, but it keeps getting you to the point of you coming to your own conclusion of like, oh, actually, I feel this way about artificial intelligence now, and then as if it kind of like we talked about with Fadi in Getting Over It. Right after that, it raises another question that makes you think, oh, actually, it's not actually that simple. So by the time that the game ends, you're living in the gray muck of all of it, while also not feeling like totally beaten down. Somehow the game is not just gobsmackingly depressing.
I don't want to detract anything from Mario because I think Mario is fucking genius.
This is the problem.
And like, there's not a moment of Mario that is not that is ill considered. The entire thing is so thoughtful and so, I think, generous to the player. But what I would say is, in the end, for me, like, Mario is a very, 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 very fun game that is inherently, if you're talking about its place in like the canon of art, if you want to say it that way, is basically a distraction. It's basically an opiate. And like, I think that's so, that can be so valuable and important and useful and not as easy to make as people like to say. But I think that like in the time period that we are living in, something that is able to use the medium of video games to raise important questions and make you think and leave you with not just like a fun experience, but like insights into the human condition and like the state of the world, and like leave you with questions and things that you continue to gnaw on, is so laudable. And I think the exact sort of thing that should be honored in when we're talking about discussions like this.
Same premise, but counterpoint to that, it was a fucking dog shit year, and I think there's something to be said for a game that is as
light
joyous as like in the same way that Nier Automata raises these important questions, right, about humanity and about I think this game's exploration of humanity is much more like interesting than its exploration of the repercussions of artificial intelligence, because it is a game about what artificial intelligence and robots and the things that humanity made think of us. And so, like, yes, those questions are all very cool, and it's an important time for those questions to be happening, but it's also an important time for a game that is so... I resent the idea that it is a distraction, that Mario's a distraction. I think it's a masterfully made, like, very happy, joyous, extremely, like, fun, fleshed out experience that while it doesn't raise like these philosophical questions necessarily, it takes game mechanics that are as old as the the medium itself and polishes them and refines them to to new degrees. And I don't think it's fair to sort of dismiss that just because it doesn't do this is why I was not looking forward to this.
I'm not dismissing anything.
No,
There's been no dismission.
I wasn't looking forward to this round because it is a question of like, what are we rewarding? This
Right.
because if you want to be like snide about it, it's like, well, do you want to do the artsy game or do you want to do like the fun polished Nintendo game? And I want to avoid that because like I think there's a deeper conversation to be had here, which is just like this is and maybe this is just going to be split when you frame it like this, but just like what game meant more to you this year. And the, solid month or so that I spent 100%ing Super Mario Odyssey and, spending time in these worlds and finding hours and hours and hours of levity and light and joy is just as important to me as a game that made me, think about existence in a way that games maybe haven't necessarily focused so much on anymore. Like I think that escape is the wrong word, that because it wasn't like I was escaping from the world. I was like just experiencing a type of joy from this medium that is like my go-to way of experiencing joy through art.
I also don't think escape or distraction I think they're very much the right words. I think the problem is that we feel guilty about it. Like there's a need, like that is what, Mario does not demand that you think about anything other than the pleasure of playing Mario. I think that's like fair to say that is an escape from the world into whatever that joy is. But I just don't think there's anything wrong with that. Let
me offer an off ramp to this, and Chris, please let me know if this seems fair to you. As much as warmly as I think about Nier and like the things it is doing, and as brilliant as I think it is structured in such a way that a lot of people that I have talked to about it, I think it does interesting things from the beginning, but the real meat of what we're talking about, it is structured in such a way that a lot of people just didn't feel inspired to get to that point. And I think that if we're considering like meditations in the nature of humanity to be the medicine of this, then the sweet that goes with it has to be sort of like above reproach, so that like everybody gets the stuff that like is the most valuable about it. And I think that like the structure of Nier makes it so that a lot of people won't get that. And I think that's...
Even if you want it. Like, this is everything... I've felt secretly very jealous the entire year, because what you are describing is, me, like, that's absolutely my fucking jam. I had a hard time getting through the shell to the sweet, sweet oyster inside. And I eventually got to at least some of that meat, but I was always sort of doing it in a way that I wish I enjoyed a little bit more than I was.
To its credit, and I'm sort of undermining myself here, but to its credit, it does give you the option to like literally like automate combat.
Right,
so you
and
can get to the stuff, like you can get to the important stuff.
But you have to understand that is also not a very satisfying...
No,
that's a bad sign.
Fair.
I hear you. I just want to completely disagree with it because I think like the idea that like art should for it to approach excellence should be ultimately accessible by everybody from the very beginning because people are impatient.
Yes.
Is like not on board with that.
But the combat and the exploration, the traversal, like these things that we talk about as like game mechanics, that's also, like it or not, like that's part of the art. That is part of the art of the game. It is part of the presentation. It is the structure within which this incredible...
I think needs to succeed as much as anything.
This gets to the conversation that we had like around the PUBG review. Me personally, I just don't give much of a shit about perfect polish when a game is striving to do more. And I think like this is... I think we should just like let Mario win this round because I think...
I agree. I agree with what you're saying, but
Well, sorry, just let me finish.
Yeah, sure.
But I think there is a desire amongst people who love video games to always benefit polish. I think that's like why Horizon would pass Gravity Rush, right? Where there is this games take risks, but the games that get rewarded tend to be games that are pleasurable, are joyful, and are super polished. And I think, like, if the beginning of this game is somehow not polished enough, that speaks to, like, it is more polished than 95% of things that get made. But it is not, like, Nintendo polished. So I get it. I, like, 100% hear it. I also just am not, like, super here for it because I think the beginning of the game is strong. And I think it just gets better. And I think the beginning of the game needs to be what it is for the rest of the game to click. Like, but yeah, I get it. I totally understand why people
I don't think that polish. I don't think polish is the right. I totally understand what you're saying, and I totally agree with the nut of what you're saying. But I don't know if polish is necessarily the right word
like
because
bugs.
this is not like there was a problem with the presentation of it or the. It's not like there were rough edges. The thing that was there, I feel like, was actually extremely polished. It just wasn't like it's
a polish of structure. It's that, like, Mario second to second is like pleasureful, right? Like,
right.
There's no second of Mario that is not giving you the dopamine kick. And this is a game that, like, there are stretches that are not fun. The beginning of the game, it is a slog to get around the world. I think ultimately there's a reason for that. But, like, that definitely does not make it an easy game to pick up and play the first time.
I don't feel good about it. Like, I wish it was any game besides Mario, but I think for me, if you're gonna the fact that to really understand the game, you have to play it multiple times, even though obviously that's not what we're talking about.
True. Also, I think critics really screwed this game over. Like, all of the language around this game is like total garbage of how you actually play it. It's just one game that you play straight through.
Yeah, but structurally you are repeating sections, and it is not the most. I don't play games a second time. After I finish them, my instinct, had I not heard, like, no, to really get it, you need to do the other endings, the other playthroughs, like, I would not instinctively have done that.
What Chris is saying is that it's not a repetition of the same thing necessarily, although I would argue that some of it is.
1 and 2 mirror each other pretty heavily, but 3, 4, and 5.
That's a big ask, though.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, and I agree. Like I said, I think Mario wins. I just think it really does come down to what you favor, and I think, like, for me, I think Justin and I have been this way since we started doing Besties. Like, we love a really good broken puppy.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And this is maybe the king.
It's heartbreaking we don't have enough,
puppies.
like, broken Eastern European games represented on
Yeah,
here.
that's
Metro.
Okay,
I think this one's just going to be 50-50 for everybody because these two are polar opposite.
Couldn't be more different.
Great games that
we
just
have
come
a lot.
preference.
We have a lot more to do here. Round 3 of
This
this
is a weird one.
super round.
Yeah, it's weird.
Lone Echo versus Dead Cells.
So
This
Lone
is-
Echo, can we? We
haven't
didn't even
played Lone
talk.
Echo.
We did not talk about Dead Cells at all.
Yeah,
in the
we
wild
haven't
card.
touched on
Juice,
Dead
why don't you
Cells.
talk
Can
about, or somebody talk about Dead
Or
Cells?
Juice introduced me to Dead Cells, so why don't you go for it, Juice?
Dead Cells is sort of a fusing of Castlevania and the roguelike structure that has started becoming injected into a lot of games. I think the best comparison is probably Rogue Legacy, but where Dead Cells, I think, for me, succeeds is it has tons of different weapons and tons of different approaches you can take to the game, and every single one of them feels, 1, different, and 2, very good. You can go from a round where you have a sword that does huge damage if your health is very low, to a round where so it makes for this, like, thrilling, like, you're always on the verge of death, but you're just, like, mowing through people, to a round where you have a rapier that does extra damage if you roll past enemies. That turns it into this, like, very fluid, kinetic experience of, rolling around and backstabbing people. The entire
Can I
thing
just comment on that in particular
please.
before you move on? I play a fuck ton of roguelike games. Like, it is unquestionably my favorite genre. If you look at my time played on my Switch, Binding of Isaac is over 100 hours. Enter the Gungeon, which just came out like 2 weeks ago, is at about 35 or 40 hours.
I never played it on PC. I'm fucking stoked.
But here's what I'm going to say. All those games that I absolutely loved, the combat is generally the weakest part of them. The reason I love those games is because I find it interesting to abuse the combinations that the developers have included in the game to make myself overpowered and feel super strong and like nail that part of it. And what Dead Cells does all that other stuff with the interesting combinations and interesting like ways to build your character, and makes the combat super fucking satisfying and fun.
I almost wish
awesome.
that this and Mario Odyssey were up against each other, because whereas Mario Odyssey is, in my opinion, the best feeling 3D game of the year, Dead Cells is like the best feeling 2D game, and
that's probably
maybe
true,
the best feeling. Maybe this and the Metroid game that came out this year could go up, because this everything feels so fucking good to do in this game. Like, I played it a lot. Even after runs, there would be runs where in a lesser Metroidvania or a lesser roguelike game that went so poorly or had so much promise and then just like fucking fell apart in a way that was super frustrating that I would have walked away, but I didn't, because this game is so extremely fun to play. My only criticism of it is that it's not quite done yet, and I know that please wait, because I'm not saying that like early access games have no place in this conversation, because that will be used against me in the next time we talk about PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. The game kind of culminates in this boss fight as it is right now. I do not know if they've updated it in the past few months. That is kind of shitty and really only works if you have built your character in one of a few kind of specific ways, or to be more precise, there are a lot of ways that you can build your character where just that final boss fight you just can't beat it, and that is the worst. I made it to that because it's a hard fucking game, and after beating my head against it a lot and unlocking a bunch of stuff and upgrading a bunch of stuff, which, by the way, please, if you're making a roguelike game, have some sort of connective tissue between the runs where you can feel a little bit more powerful run to run, because this game does it really, really well, and it's the best. I finally made it to the boss and got destroyed because this build that had helped me make my way through the rest of the game, that I felt very rewarded by, was just determined to be insufficient. And that was kind of disappointing for me, and I think is a factor of the game not quite being complete yet, which I think next year, like, this game is going to be a fucking juggernaut that everybody's going to talk about.
I disagree. I feel like I'm worried its moment may have passed. Like, the buzz around it when it launched, I think, was really good. I don't think that, barring like a huge leap forward,
2 words,
it's going to re-enter the conversation.
2 words.
Nintendo
Switch version. Yeah, like Switch version of this game, and then when it's done, is fucking hello.
Is that
that's
happening?
It.
Like, is it? Have they said it's
it
happening?
It has not been confirmed.
It would be
but
buck
I'd be
wild
very
if they
surprised.
didn't, though, because that is this is the best Metroidvania game of the year, and it would fucking annihilate on Switch once it's like done and complete. And I'm not dismissing the rest of the game, because again, I played it a lot and I think it's exceptional and very, very fun. But there's something about playing a roguelike game and feeling this like, I'm gonna fucking make it. I'm gonna reach the top of the mountain. And you reach the top of the mountain, and then there's a dude like, your pants are wrong, and he kicks you back down the mountain. That is literally what getting over it is. But Lone Echo, I think, is for me, it's Lone Echo, just because like it's the best VR game ever, and is a very, very special game that came out in a time of year where like there wasn't a whole lot out, which I don't know that I would have given Lone Echo a chance, because I had to plug all my shit in.
Yeah, it's a big pain in the ass.
But it came out in a time of the year where there wasn't a lot of like special experiences coming down the pipe, and it just blew my hair back.
Yeah, I would probably go with Lone Echo as well. A lot of the reasons that Griffin said, which is to say, last I played Dead Cells, it wasn't wholly there, and that ending does really matter to make for a satisfying experience. And also, just Lone Echo like executes so fucking well on every single weird, creative, innovative thing that they try, that like it's spectacular, and you guys should really play it.
I can't believe Lone Echo has made it this far. Well, wait, I'm assuming it's Plant and Justin. What do you think?
I didn't play Lone Echo. I have a Vive, and I know there's a sneaky backdoor way of doing it, but I just haven't had my VR stuff hooked up. So I've not played Lone Echo, but I think the case y'all make for it seems very strong. but everybody should play Dead Cells.
Yep.
Very fun.
Plant, do you have any
I have
opinion?
no opinion.
Great.
Have you played either of these games? Did you play Dead Cells at all?
Well, no. I played like 10 minutes.
Okay.
I want to play
Okay.
more, but no.
Man, that
Yep.
Switch version.
Yeah.
that'll be
bad? The conversation this year is about how great the Switch is, right? And because the Switch is great, and there's a lot of great games. There's I would say a generous handful of great like exclusive games, all mostly first party, with a couple other weirdos thrown in there as well. But mostly it's a lot of ports. And at any other time, like I would feel weird about sort of saying how great that is. But again, as somebody who travels nonstop, to have all of these incredible indie games, which are some of my favorite games ever, and the developers of these games, to their credit, are so smart because they're like, oh yeah, this is going to be very, very good if I put it on Switch. Like Stardew Valley, like, oh yeah, this will destroy the world if I put this on Switch. I've been really smart. And y'all, like, I've had it for 10 months now. It came out in February, and I have about 40 games, I want to say, on the Switch, which is unheard of. Is that weird to give it that much credit for ports and stuff like that?
It's great. It's great. It's also an hour and 45 minutes into this podcast. Please, for the love of Jesus, pick a best game between Persona 5 and Breath of the Wild. It's Breath of the Wild. Congratulations, Breath of the Wild.
Griffin, what do you want to say to close out Persona 5? Because there's no fucking way I'm letting it go through.
It's a great game. I hope they make Persona 5 Gold and then fix a lot of stuff and make it portable.
And put it on Switch.
Trim down the entire final act.
Trim down the entire final act, and also change the entire emphasis of, because that's no spoilers, but like this is a game about like rebelling against adults who are trying to fucking ruin the world, which again, hey, pretty timely story being presented there. And it does a pretty good job of at least focusing on that and telling a pretty cool story about it. And then in the final act, it does like the usual Persona shit of just like, but what if it's actually whatever? I'm not going to spoil it.
Also, make Yusuke romanceable. How is Yusuke not romanceable?
Charging on through to the next round.
Semifinals.
4 games left in the semifinals. Lone Echo versus Breath of the Wild. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds versus Mario Odyssey. Round 1.
Griffin, do we want to say anything else about Lone Echo before it gets booted?
I don't know. Like, this is not a great argument for a game, but there's something to be said for it's the best. It's the best VR game ever. It's the best. If VR, and I don't know if VR is going to be something that sticks around. I don't know if VR is going to be something that becomes as commercially viable as, you know, the traditional game releases that we know about. But if it does, like, this is going to be the fucking, or it should be at the very least, the fucking Rosetta Stone of being clever about how you solve for all of these problems in VR. Because I've seen a lot of clumsy solutions for this. Take like Skyrim VR of just like you teleport forward 6 inches at a time. In trying to solve those problems, like Lone Echo, it's not a clumsy fix for anything. Like, it is the whole point of the fucking game and is so genius. And I don't think that's necessarily a great pitch for what should be the game of the year, but I think it is like definitely a standout. But Breath of the Wild is probably the best game ever made. So let's move on to the next thing.
All right, round 2. This one's a little trickier. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds versus Super Mario Odyssey.
Do we want to do a straw vote at the beginning?
Yeah, sure.
PUBG.
Odyssey. I mean, for me it's Odyssey, but it doesn't sound like it's gonna be much of a. Could anybody be swayed one way or the other?
Tell us why it's Odyssey.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna dunk on PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds because I do think it's genius, and I've talked about my problems with it. For me, Mario Odyssey is in many ways an evolution and a continuation of the franchise that has existed for several decades, and sort of a logical conclusion for that. But
this is a Polygon exclusive. It's the last Mario game ever made.
If it was, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because I think the thing about Mario Odyssey that to me is laudable and worthy of praise here which is what laudable means. Fuck me. So anyway, Mario Odyssey, when you see something in Mario Odyssey, anything, it was put there for a reason. Like, there is no experience that I can think of, like in video games, that is on this level of. I think a lot about the idea of the hand of the designer in game design, like your ability to feel. I think we talked about this. I talked about this with Getting Over It, like the ability to feel that the game designer has considered what you are doing and has allowed for it to happen. And I think with Mario Odyssey, it is staggering to me that like I get a dumb idea to hop up on a ledge that I probably shouldn't be able to, but maybe if I finesse it just this way, I might be able to, and I'm kind of cheating the system. And when you get up there, there's some coins, and Miyamoto's like, I saw you coming. I knew you were going to come up here. So I, Shigeru Miyamoto, got up here first, and I put these coins here. It's just so generous in that sense from the beginning, and so like in love with the player. And I think that like in and I'm it's funny because I'm making sort of the evil parallel dimension argument for where I was talking about Nier, but I think like in the world as it stands now, I think a game that with zero sort of meanness in its heart and zero sort of like cruelty is able to create an experience that just hugs the player and elevates them and makes them feel good and smart and rewarded and cares about literally every second of their, like recognizes that time is the most precious resource we have and recognizes that every second that is invested into your game is a gift. And Mario is one of the few games that I think really exemplifies the gravity of that. And I think that like it doesn't take for granted any second that you give to it. And I think that is honestly kind of beautiful. And I think a lovely sort of gift to give people.
You're swaying me a bit because I agree with you. and that you hear developers talk about that as being an important focus for the game, right? Like this game values your time. I think that was a big thing that Jonathan Blow hit on when he was talking about Braid, when Braid was first coming out. And I agree. I think it's the most important. I think it's the most important sort of facet of game design is respect for the player's time, because I'm a dad now and I have basically 2 jobs and my time is fairly limited. And so nothing turns me off faster than, well, you have to repeat this thing and there's not really a great reason to do so. But where Mario Odyssey is such an outlier is that it does follow that sort of design mandate in a fucking enormous. It's not like we respect your time, so here's an hour and a half long experience. Like this is a fucking huge game that if you want to really go at it and 100% it is going to take you dozens and dozens of hours, each second of which is valued. I think I don't know that there's ever been a game necessarily that has pulled that off quite as well.
I'm gonna be a little bit negative on Mario just because even though I absolutely adore the game and I really think it is a masterful experience, I do not think that it is 100 like as consistent, in my opinion, as consistent as people make it out to be. I think there are chunks of the game that don't feel as amazingly fantastic.
Like what?
Like boss fights, for example. A lot of the boss fights are like not fun due to the camera or what have you. Some of them are great, but some of them are really not fun. And when there's like a boss rush mode, and I found it to be pretty miserable. I don't want to focus on the negative because I really, again, adored this game, but I'm just trying to like rationalize the flip side to that.
Here's the fact of the matter. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds in 3 years will be remembered in the way that
Doom, like the first Doom I feel
or
like.
Quake will be remembered in that.
Yes.
Extremely important, but like, man, do I want to go back and play it? Probably not.
I do want to.
It's a little hard to like. Imagine returning like Wolfenstein 3D right now. And you go back to it and try to play it. It's like, man, this really opens so many doors and everything. But like Mario Odyssey in 10 years, if you fire that up, it is still going to be an absolute landmark.
Yeah,
like
I
joy.
I want to put out a counter argument here because I'm genuinely torn. I talked about how I liked Mario Odyssey better than Nier Automata because it was this joyful game that made me feel this emotion of joy. And if you want to talk about like pound for pound, the game that has elicited the most emotions from me during this year, it is PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, because I love that. I love that moment of beating that boss in Dark Souls or Cuphead this year that like you pound your fucking head against and then you finally do it. And it's like, fuck yeah, I did that. I put in the work. I cranked that out. I can't believe that I finally did it. And I don't like, this is not an argument. It is a fact. The moment that gave me the most elation and happiness and satisfaction this year that a video game gave me was the first win I got in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Like I will never forget that. And it's not just the first, it's all of them. It's the first win that me and Russ and Simone and somebody else pulled out in the first episode of Awful Squad, that we won a game of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds while we were streaming. It was this moment, it was this culmination of, and I view a lot of my positive experiences with PUBG through Awful Squad because it's been so much fucking fun to make that series. But the first time we won, it completed this narrative arc of us being dumbasses who suck at the game to like, we did it together.
Yeah.
I've spent so much time playing it, and a lot of it has been in squads or duos. I reconnected with some folks, some like ex-Polygon, ex-Vox people it's been really great to keep up with them through playing this game, which I thought Destiny 2 was going to be, and I don't think it necessarily provided me this great social experience, but PUBG definitely has. And all of that is to say, like, if you want to talk about video games being these things that can inspire emotional responses from the player, PUBG is like designed for that and did so for me like so very, very, very well, like so nicely. And
and I also think like a lot of the issue is that, well, I don't know. The point you made about PUBG not necessarily being super playable in 3 to 5 to 10 years is valid. I think that's kind of a nature of shooters in general, but I also think it's going to be because you're going to see every developer on the sun basically take aim at this format, which is obviously very easily copied. We've already seen Fortnite and other developers like
not copied well. I think it's gonna be really fucking hard to copy it well.
Yes, not copy. It's not easy to copy something well, but the bones of it are very easily copied, and so you see like once we have extremely like the entire world of the development community pouring their heart and soul into like, how do I make this better? Yeah, people are going to improve on it in the way that like, how much of the original Super Mario Brothers can I play? Like, I'll play a half hour for nostalgia's sake, but I'm not going to like sink a ton of time into it. And I think that first thing that pushes everything else forward needs to be applauded and
absolutely,
celebrated.
Because we can't talk about this thing and future-proof it. This is the game we have now, and it's a game that I have spent 10 Earth days playing, and have fucking there have certainly been moments in there of frustration and exhaustion with the thing, but there have also been these incredibly high highs that as much as I love Mario Odyssey, and again, it did give me a lot of happiness. I think that if you want to talk about like my peak moment of happiness this year was when I finally fucking conquered the machine. When I finally conquered 99 other jerks to prove that like I was capable of doing this thing that if you'd asked me last year, like, hey, do you think you're ever going to get in this hardcore military shooter and win in a, game against 99 other people? I would say like, no, that's not my thing. But this game proved that I could do it. And that brought me so much happiness.
And not only that, on one fucking map.
On one map. One very good map.
We've been playing one map that effectively most of the map looks almost identical to most of the rest of the other map. There's a few landmarks, but like, gun to my head, I probably couldn't pick it out. The fact that it has been this buggy, weird, laggy sometimes, hackers sometimes, like it is a very imperfect experience. And the fact that it's still as impactful as it is a testament to how fucking good it is. And I think Mario is a great game, but I also think 50% of Mario is a Mario that we've experienced before. The other 50%
disagree with that, but
feel very new.
I am, however, willing to. I'm willing to see it. I think it's interesting because it's in much the same way as Mario versus Nier. It's a question of like, what do we want to reward? And I think that there's like, I think it's worth rewarding innovation as well as like
I can
overall
divorce
excellence.
I can divorce it from that conversation because for me now it's like I loved both of these games. For me, it's a very personal decision of just like which one did I enjoy the most, and
which will stick with you,
right? And I think
that's how I
think Mario is.
Well, it's interesting though. It's an interesting version in that I think that the experience of playing Mario Odyssey will stick with people who played it the most. I think that the things that PlayerUnknown's Battleground has built will actually have more effect on the face of gaming in the next decade. Like I think that like in that sense, it's like more important than Mario. I think is a fair thing to say.
Strap in, by the way, for this exact same conversation in the final round of PUBG.
Okay, let's please do
Chris,
that.
Are you okay with PUBG?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Breath of the final round for the Besties game of 2017, The Legend of Zelda, and Zelda's the boy, by the way. A lot of people get that confused. Legend of Zelda, a boy, versus PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild versus PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
This would be a weird conversation to have if Breath of the Wild came out in November. I mean, it would not be a weird conversation. I feel like it'd be a very fast conversation. Don't you think? Like, if it was this fresh and this, like, exciting, and I'm saying it's good, like, that we don't necessarily have the recency bias sort of tinging the conversation, but...
I'll take the against Zelda on this.
You want to go for PUBG? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not even necessarily that. Just some flaws in Zelda.
Okay. Sure.
One, it can be extremely boring. Two, it can be obtuse in ways that don't always benefit it. Its strengths can sometimes be its weaknesses. It can set you out and give you the illusion of freedom. One of the things that actually stopped me midway through the game for, I don't know, months was I had got it in my head that I was going to get a very, very fancy type of armor. And I had done 2 of the main bosses, and then I got to Lava Land. And then it became very clear that my potions were not as useful as I had thought they were, and I needed to spend a lot of my money on that armor instead. And it was such a disappointment that it felt like, okay, I had worked, I had grinded, I had done all these things to get this thing that I was really covetous of, and now I'm going to have to move on in the game. I'm going to have to just sink it into this thing that really is just an artificial way of letting me move in this new space that I need to be in. I'm sure there is some other way that I could have navigated it. That is also one of the joys of the game, is that you can game it, that it is so open-ended. But at the same time, I sometimes found myself very frustrated by its freedom. I think the horses are another huge weakness of the game.
That's the reason it doesn't win Game of the Year, is because of the horses.
Hey, wide.
What's your problem with the horses?
It's a big open world game, and I find them. I find learning how to use them very, very, very frustrating.
It's got a motor.
Yeah,
it's got a motor.
The horses
it's
are
got
stupid.
a motorcycle now.
And the motorcycle's fucking great.
Yeah. I think it's a very, very, very good game. I do think it is not a flawless game, as some people like to describe it. I think it is a game with a number of flaws, but I think those flaws, kind of like what I've said about Nier, are products of the risks it takes. I'm not sure you could take the risks that it does with open world, with its basically refusal to hold your hand in certain points, without also having some of these kind of headaches.
Can we mention the DLC real quick, which this should not factor into the conversation, right? Because I feel like that's kind of a bogus precedent to set, maybe. But we just never really dived into the DLC before. This should have gone in maybe the honorable mentions thing at the beginning of the episode. But I didn't really play DLC 1 or because I was waiting for like 2 to come out, and I knew I was just going to replay the whole thing. again, and they add some stuff that really make the experience of going around the world like so much better. The first DLC adds a warp token that you can just drop anywhere, and now it counts as a warp point that you can warp back to at any point. You can move it around the world wherever you want it, which is like that.
And also, I want to make sure we call out a total game changer that should be in every open world game ever from now on, if the technology allows it. I don't know what they call it.
Hero's Path.
Yeah. Hero's Path, which shows you the last 300 hours of gameplay where you walked on the map.
It's really cool.
And it's seriously like, I still haven't gotten 120 shrines because I refuse to look up where the remaining shrines are. I think I'm missing like 5. And all I do whenever I get some free time in the game is I'll be like, oh, I have not gone here ever. I'm going to walk over there. And the number of times that I've maybe not found a shrine, but I found like a new area that looks completely different from any other area I've seen is like crazy to me and awesome. And it was just a genius addition.
The DLC also adds the motorcycle, which I can't stress enough. Like, it is so fucking fun to explore. There's a jump button while you're on the motorcycle. So you like go up a mountain and you hit the top and you jump off of it. And now all of a sudden you're flying through the air on a motorcycle like fucking Evel Knievel. And then you can leap off of that. And now all of a sudden you're parasailing off of it. It also adds, I think it's called the Ancient Bridle that you can put on any horse. And then you press a button and your horse is instantly, no matter where you are, where your horse is in the world, it instantly appears right next to you.
Yeah, you can be on top of a tower, which is
I think
funny.
Fixes the horse problem pretty much a lot.
I think it does too, but it requires DLC.
And also the Champion Song like story DLC is Champion's Ballad is really, really great, and it adds more sort of character building cutscenes and stuff that I found very enticing. But anyway,
here I do want to say, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I still am not 100% sure what I'm going to land on because I'm really vacillating pretty hard for both. Someone on this podcast defend the experience of rain in Breath of the Wild.
I can defend it in this way. Rain in Breath of the Wild is a big pain in the ass, especially if there is a thunderstorm, because then you can't. I actually think that's cool because like you can't have any metal.
Yeah, that doesn't bother me.
Or else you'll get electrocuted. The only time that rain really works is the first time you're making your way into the Zora world, and it basically limits you from trivializing this like kind of cool path of monsters that you have to find your way through and fight your way through, because if you could just climb over a mountain and just be done with it, then you could just do that. And so in that sense, it makes sense. They needed some way to make it. They gave you infinite ability to climb wherever you want, which is we shouldn't trivialize that. Is fucking groundbreaking and really remarkable. And it is going to be something that is going to be a pain point for every other open world game I play where I don't have that level of freedom of exploration. And when it's raining, you are slipping and sliding, and it makes it much, much harder to climb up things, which can be kind of annoying sometimes.
Also, I'm not the first person to say this, but I think it's really cool that it takes the world and makes it antagonistic against you. Like so many, I mean, this is the ability to climb everything in the game anyway, but so many open world games are static boxes. Fresh and I have talked about this with my love of Red Faction Guerrilla. And while you can't destroy everything in this game, everything is it has a purpose. It can be climbed. You can engage with it. And I think that they found a way to somehow make it so it's not just an object that benefits you, but that it can also be turned against you. And I think the same thing with rain, with lightning. I think it's really interesting that they found a way in the story that seems natural to turn the entire world against you in a way that isn't just more enemies.
And in terms of scale, like, you cannot beat this game, I don't think, in terms of like how it deals with scale, because you have that first moment of stepping out of the Shrine of Resurrection and looking over the world, and that moment, which I almost wish they hadn't, I don't know how you don't put this in a trailer, is so breathtaking. Like the first time you play the game, and it's constantly all of these like incredible vistas. The world is so like, it looks like a really good Studio Ghibli movie. Like it has such a unique sort of artistic style that is not just like everything's all high res and gorgeous. It is painterly in a way in most of the places that you're at. But then you get to Kakariko Village, and it's in this valley, and it feels much more closed in. And there's all these, thatched roof cottages with these fires inside where people are keeping warm from the storm outside, or every time you go into a shrine and now all of a sudden you are not in this open world where you are the master and commander of the the elements and can go anywhere. Now you are limited, and you have to figure out this clever puzzle that you're in, and it's a completely different type of experience. And that's what Zelda, like 3D Zelda games, and in a way 2D Zelda games, have been about, in that they've all been open world to an extent, where you can go around and find different sort of pathways to empower yourself, and then go into a dungeon where it's like, all right, let's see if you're tough enough. This game does that 120 times plus change. Like, I think is kind of
I would
remarkable.
also say, like, if you think back to Ocarina or even Majora's Mask and other games, like, they feel linear in comparison to how open this game is.
Yeah,
like,
because
you are really moved down very specific paths through towns, through whatever. I mean, they are open world to a certain extent, but like for the most part, they're pretty linear and like small as hell compared to this game. And that's not a knock necessarily; it's just a different experience.
It's so fascinating how this is such a, and we haven't really talked about this, is such an enormous departure from what Zelda is. It is. Right. This is a fucking huge open world game, and there's no like there have been no things cut out of that experience in making it this new thing. And while it is, like, in my opinion, like one of the best open world games ever made, and something that fixes so many of the problems that I have with open world games, it's kind of incredible how much Zelda DNA is still in it. Like, it's not like okay, we just made an open world game because we're Nintendo and we wanted to make an open world game, but we'll call it Zelda, so we'll make your life be represented in hearts and there's rupees and stuff. It feels
like Zelda 1, like a next gen version of Zelda 1, which is to say, no guidance. You can go wherever the fuck you want. You get creamed by most enemies because you don't know who you're fighting or where items are or anything. But it obviously has been modernized with physics and fucking chemistry and that stuff, like really, all sorts of crazy
that stuff
shit.
Really shines in Master Mode. I'm so glad that I went back and played the game again, partially because like I'd kind of forgotten what I loved so much about it, and in like writing my Game of the Year video for Polygon, I was like, what the fuck do I say about Breath of the Wild? It was really good and really polished, really well made. And then playing it in Master Mode, like, you really have to use all of that like clever physics discovery based stuff, or else you'll die, especially early on in the game when you have nothing and the enemies you're fighting are these god killers. You have to use that stuff, and it really makes you appreciate like how much work went into making it feel like this new thing.
All right, we have talked about both of these games a lot. Where's everybody at?
I mean, Breath of the Wild. I know it's the only reason I would not pick Breath of the Wild is if I wanted our pick to be more interesting. And that's not to say that PUBG is not a good game, because obviously I think it's incredible, but like I think Breath of the Wild is a fucking masterpiece.
Yeah, I wonder if like
Plant,
1.0
Plant, are you leaning towards PUBG?
No. So the weird thing about Breath of the Wild is you can play it wherever you want because it's a portable game.
That's huge. True. That's huge.
I know that's like kind of become like the empty thing of the year, but
it
like
ain't empty.
while y'all were talking, while you were talking, that is the thing I kept thinking about is, man, I can't discount that. Like usually this type of game, it feels like if Nintendo or any other company had made this console, this would be the game that would come out 4 years in, and it would be like, oh, yeah. Now they've really figured it out. But this came out like
day one.
It just was there. And I think that's pretty incredible. So yeah, I'm probably leaning Zelda.
Russell?
Yeah. What I was gonna say real quick is that PUBG, I think if 1.0 PUBG had come out like 6 months ago, and we had experienced like right now the game runs like a hell of a lot better, looks a lot better, lighting gorgeous, 2 maps, maybe I would feel differently. But the fact that, we spent a year playing like a very awesome, amazing, fantastic, earth-shatteringly different game, but still a game that had a lot of problems, performance, etc. Whereas fucking Zelda was just like such a joy, and like
I don't want it to boil down to like it was the more polished game though, because I think we're
well
beyond that.
But what I'm saying was like it's, you know,
there are things that are keeping PUBG from its full potential, like, and that has been the state of it.
And I think they're really starting just now, like this month, to address those things. But it's happening so late in the year, whereas Zelda was fucking at peak position day one. And I'm not just talking about polish. I'm talking about like certain design things and like, like all that stuff matters. And I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards Zelda.
I was going to say PUBG, but whatever you guys think. I don't know.
Were you really, or are you just trying to be hip?
The more we've talked about Public G, the thing that is hard for me to get past, and I think we're probably going to end up on Zelda, but the thing that is hard for me to get past is like it probably seems like I'm have a split personality here, but it really is just thinking about each question as it comes up in each of these rounds. But it is hard for me to deny the like absolute, like, we built a video series
empire, a video empire.
Thank you. No, like, this game like has brought us so much like fun and joy in this year, and like it certainly there were conversations that I had with people about Zelda about like how great it is, but it was still pretty much an insular experience. And like there's something huge to me about the fact that like this game is something that managed to like bring, and in the way that I've kind of felt about Destiny 1 actually, like that it managed to bring so many people together and just like give you a sort of space to have fun with a bunch of people in a way that like no other game really, I think, has achieved. And not on this level of like not on this scale, certainly. And I think the scale of the game is certainly what lends itself to that. But like the countless hours of joy and pleasure that we like as a collective have derived from Public G makes it sort of hard to dismiss for me. And it doesn't feel
close. It doesn't feel close to Tapped. Like even if 1.0 hadn't come out, this new map hadn't come out, and all this new stuff hadn't happened, I spent 250 or so hours playing the early access version of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and I still feel like I could have played it another 1,000 hours, and each game would have been different in some meaningful way.
I to play devil's advocate again, the only thing I would say is I agree with everything Justin said. I think if we didn't have custom game access, I don't know that Awful Squad would have had the legs. In addition to a shout out to Awful Squad Junior, which is like a very good community that has supported Awful Squad and joins us for streams and plays with us. Like, I think most people who do not have 100 people that could just jump into a custom server and fuck around for an hour,
because Awful Squad Junior exists because of PUBG. Like that community would not have popped up around another video series that we had done with a different game.
Yes, 100%. So they made the possibility for that. I wonder how much I need to knock the game for the fact that like most people will not ever have that experience.
It's our dumb list. I mean, it's our goofy
It's our dumb list. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, no, I know. That's true.
And if you want to talk about like important stuff on a personal level, this is a new genre of games, really a new platform. I don't play like PC shooters just because I decided to play Destiny 2 on console instead of PC because I knew the PC crowd was going to be way more hardcore. Like, I've shied away purposefully from PC shooters, and especially from hardcore shooters and military sim shooters, which I think, given the amount of like technical shit, bullet drop and scope zeroing and all that garbage that exists in PUBG, I think you could classify it as that. It's not a way that it's not a genre I tapped into before, and now I find much more approachable. But if you want to talk about things that this game made approachable for me, I watched a lot of streaming of PUBG this year, which is never, aside from games done quick and the speedrunning circuit, which I tap into from time to time. I never really got the experience of watching other people play video games sort of with a mind towards fandom, which is not to dismiss that. It's just like, personally speaking, like I never really got into it until this. And now, like, I do a lot. Like, I've spent some nights watching Jake Lear, Awful Squad guest and former Voxer, just playing PUBG because it's really fucking fun to watch other people play this game. I watched the big tournament that they did, which was a little bit of a mess, but it was still really fucking fun to watch this game being played at the highest levels of mastery. Like it sort of gave me a new way to enjoy video games, which is not a new way for everybody else, but it was certainly a new way for me. I don't fucking know now.
The thing that I know I made comments about accessibility, and I guess I should have refined that a little bit to say that, like, I think it needs to do a better job of getting people who are new to the game into firefight situations repeatedly, or like at least in like practice with weapons or so, like a shooting range or something to help. I mean, you have the load in.
The load in area, I think, is supposed to be that, but it does not do a good job.
It needs a way to help you like grow your skill in the firefight segments that don't pop up enough until you've sunk a lot of hours into it. And that is what I mean by accessibility, in that, like, getting better at this game really does require a big time commitment, because there's a big part at the beginning where you're not doing the stuff you have to do to close the deal. But what I will say is that from the other side of that accessibility token is, I think that PUBG makes like huge multiplayer shooters, it divorces the fun of those from skill for a large chunk of it. And what I mean by that is, really, I think with the state of most first-person shooters, to really have a fun time, you need to be really good at the game. And I mean, like, I think Call of Duty is a great example of this, where like it's usually fun to play a new Call of Duty game for the first week because not everybody's great at it. And then after that, you get outclassed pretty quickly by people who are playing it hardcore. And I would say with PUBG, you can have a good time by being smart and like making good choices. And like, that's really cool. Like, that's really a huge sort of like step forward, I think, for the shooter genre, and like an absolutely necessary shot in the arm.
I could go either way, gang. I really don't know.
While we're talking about this, all I can think is, Nintendo, if you wouldn't mind using the Breath of the Wild engine to make a Four Swords Adventures with online play, can you fucking imagine how amazing?
I mean, it'd be people knocking each other over with big metal boxes, probably nonstop.
Totally fine with me. That would be amazing.
Can we do another sort of gut check? Maybe not the final vote, but like, I'm curious as if things have changed, because I really do not know.
I'd still say PUBG.
Chris?
I don't. How about Fresh?
I think I'm sticking with Zelda.
Man, this is. I think PUBG is in a lot of ways our sad broken puppy of the year, right? Like, it's a game that is, there's a lot of things that are fucked up about it that we all love so much.
It really comes down to a coin flip for me.
No, that's not a good way to do it.
I know, but like sometimes life hands you coin flips.
No, it doesn't.
You have two children that you love.
You know what? If it is a tie, we already have someone to solve ties.
No,
so
God, we're not doing it that way again. No, fuck no. I'll quit the podcast. This will be the last episode of Besties. This is a show where we make dumb arguments.
Don't take that in front of me unless you mean it.
I still think it's Zelda for me. I think that PUBG is a very important game, but it's not just like, that's not why I think it deserves to maybe be game of the year. I think it is also like a deeply fucking fun, brilliantly designed game, but as a whole package, like I do think, yes, I recognize that it has some flaws, but it is.
Let me ask you this:
as close to perfect a game as I've played in a long time.
I'm asking everybody this. But like, we've been sitting here on this boring conversation for what feels like 3 hours, and it's definitely getting there. When you've certainly got the itch to go like play a video game instead of have to do this anymore. The thing that the thought that has occurred to me the most during this discussion is like, man, I wish I could go play some PUBG. That's a very fun video game. And like, it's been out for a grip. It's been out for a while, and I played a lot of it, and I still am in that mindset. And like, am looking forward to the next year of this game in a way that, like, I don't know that I've ever felt about a game. And that for me is sort of what tears is like Zelda. I actually tried to get back into it for the Champions Ballad, and like I instantly was like, and I had the same problem with Horizon. Like, what do any of these buttons do? Why do I have so many fucking bows? Like, what is happening here? I don't feel that way with PUBG. I think that they're like I could hop on whenever and play around with it, and I think that that's really cool.
If that's the way we're going, then I would go with Zelda, because I literally did just replay the same game twice in the same huge game twice in the same year, just so I could.
I'm prepared to make the final decision.
Well, for you or for all of us?
No, because I have a deciding vote if I want it.
He does.
The winner is Nier. Congratulations, Nier.
Wow, huge. No one expected this.
We gotta do this. We gotta do this.
I think like it's gonna come down to a tie again.
No.
If I vote PUBG, it will come down to a forever tie. Interesting. I love them both for very, very different reasons. I can't bring myself to say either of them is better than
But
the
that's what
other.
we do here. We make bad decisions that we feel
I
terrible
know,
about. We
I
can't do
know.
it. We can't do a time. We can't do a New York Giraffe fucking deciding it for us.
Well, so say I say PUBG. What's our solution?
Yeah, where do we go from there?
we keep
I think it's the
fucking- we're
Just
problem.
gonna go on
We
for
keep going.
Keep going. It's like a filibuster.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna start reading the newspaper.
What haven't we considered? What haven't we considered? There's got to be something. PUBG's not portable, so that's a point in Zelda's direction.
So let me address Justin's point. Justin, when you were playing Zelda, like in the heart of Zelda, when you were like just had played it, didn't you feel that like I want to stop podcasting and go play Zelda?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Totally. And to knock
For
onto
some
that,
parts of it, there are some parts of it where I was
sure.
like, man, it's raining, or man, this heat thing is annoying. Boy, I'm tired of messing with that. There were certainly lulls in Zelda where
Yeah, I'm not
I didn't
saying-
want to. I wasn't
sure.
compelled to like hurtle forward.
To address your point specifically comparing it to PUBG, I think the reason that PUBG is a game that you can jump into very eagerly out of nowhere is because there's no baggage, which is to say every game starts from scratch, and it doesn't matter if you're geared up or you don't have to like reboot necessarily. You just need to remember the buttons. And I don't think that's not a bad thing. I actually part of the reason
recall though, Russ. I'm talking about the potential of the thing, like the fact that has been here, it's been out for a while, and has like with a pretty threadbare offering has managed to like sustain everybody's interest for so long, and then like the fact that like it's about to double in size, like realistically about to double, like and I cannot wait to see what else that brings like in the next year.
I feel the same thing. I don't know that we can rule on potentialities, though,
because I also think that Champions Ballad expanded Breath of the Wild in a really very cool, meaningful, surprisingly substantial way. So
and God willing, they'll just update it.
Please
forever.
God, like that would be incredible.
Yeah, but I don't feel comfortable being like, well, there's probably going to be 3 more maps by next fall and a bunch of new weapons and a new mode and blah 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 blah. Like, I don't like, even though that does excite me too, I don't want to rule.
They could just as easily fuck it up. Like I said
Sure.
the same thing about Destiny 2, which again, like I enjoyed the time I spent with Destiny 2, but I also had this sort of apologetic, like, well, I know there's some problems, but I'm sure they're going to fix it. And I think that Bungie's actually made some kind of bad decisions in how so like odds are PUBG could, not go in a great direction. That is the nature of sort of these live games. Is that you just don't know.
I also wonder like how much of this is like my affinity for Zelda as a franchise, which is to say like I love Zelda. I've played every Zelda installment. This is my favorite Zelda game ever. Not even a question. I loved Link to the Past. That was before this. That was my favorite. This is better than Link to the Past. It is fucking fantastic.
We're not open the door to that discussion. I'll give you $5 American PayPal you right now. If we could not have that.
So
that debate.
what I'm saying is I don't know like whether it's getting points in my brain because it is conquering what I thought was unconquerable.
Let me make this. No, I'm gonna I'm going to put an end to this.
Oh, I also have another thing.
Well, okay, then I definitely want to put an end to it.
Well, then let me do my thing. Let me do my thing. Let me just try my thing.
I've got to
Let me just try
so
my thing.
bad. Please, I'll do anything. Okay, do your thing in a paragraph.
No. Breath of the Wild is a very good game, right? And we've touched on this a lot during these 12 hours of recordings that we've done, in that it's like a portable game, right? I mean, a lot of the time that's been sort of joking, like, oh, and by the way, you can take it with you. But there is something to be said for the fact that, like, I play games in kind of a specific way now, where usually I'm also doing something else. I'm on the couch, watching TV with Rachel, or I'm on the go or whatever. And this was the year where that sort of habit, or that way that I play video games, became like the only way I play games, just because of the nature of where I am at in life. And I genuinely think if it weren't for the Switch, I would have had a much different year of playing games, which is to say, I just would not have played nearly as many of them, because I wouldn't have this avenue available to me. And to me, like, Zelda is the game that started all of that. Like, PUBG, I agree, is groundbreaking in this way, where it introduces a incredibly fun genre in a really sort of, we talked about how it's the sad broken puppy, but it is actually, it's a very technically polished game that not many developers, maybe no other developers, could have made. But in the same way, I think that there is something to be said for the way that you play a game is just as important. And to me, this was what the Switch accomplished this year, and there was no greater accomplishment on the Switch than Zelda. And so for that reason, I think I'm pretty solid in my choice of it being Zelda.
All right, great. I'll give it up to Zelda. Zelda, congratulations.
Just
on
like
being,
Just like that?
Yeah, just like that. You
What
didn't.
was your
Justin
thing?
needs to pee is the
What was your
problem.
thing, Justin?
It was just
No, he was
this,
gonna say he
except
needs
then
to
I
pee.
put the bit in about how you convinced me. No, I think that if you were to lock these two games in Amber and you were to get both of them on a DVD, then that you would put into your computer system, it probably wouldn't fit on either one of those. So let's call it a Blu-ray. I think that at this exact point in which we're recording, Zelda is the bigger accomplishment, and ultimately by a hair's breadth, the better thing, because a lot of my excitement about PUBG, it has to do with our experience and also the future of it.
Can we put an asterisk and say that we'll give it to Zelda, but next year we will also consider PUBG in the game? No. Seriously, I think it's worth talking about. December 2018, we do this episode, and I think we bring back PUBG just to see if it fucking has stood up to the test of time, and if it actually has become this, like, huge fleshed out experience that we all really want it to be. Because if so, like, maybe it'll win next year.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll talk about that in 2018. But for now, thank you for listening to this incredibly lengthy episode of the Besties. Maybe it's
People
2
love that
episodes
shit.
by the point we release it. It's hard to say. But thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to us all year. Congratulations to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
The second Zelda game to ever win.
Wow, sheesh. She should be. Okay, great. So anyway, that's been the Besties. Be sure to join us again next year for the Besties. Because shouldn't the world's best friends pick the world's best games? Besties!